Sorry, Nancy, I didn't do that on purpose. Laura Lee, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
I don't have everybody's. And we're gonna go ahead and start our meeting. Yeah, I don't have the gavel, so. All right, Laura Lee, please call the roll.
Stu Boyd,
Here.
Denise Chapman,
Here.
Amy Doran,
On her way.
Don Kirk,
Here.
Barbara Cruz,
Here.
Alexander Lessem,
She's on her way also.
Nancy Rumpel.
Here. Thank you. Stu? No, Nancy, will you lead us in the pledge?
We can do it in unison. I'll let you do it this way.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Nancy. All right. First item on our agenda is to adopt the agenda for this evening, June 5th, 2024. Are there any changes to the agenda for tonight's meeting? Hearing none, I will take a motion to adopt the agenda as printed. So moved. Thank you,
Second.
Don, and then Stu. All right, Laura Lee, please call the roll.
Stu Boyd,
Aye.
Denise Chapman,
Aye.
Amy Doran, Don Kirk,
Aye.
Barbara Cruz,
Aye.
Alexander Lessem, Nancy Rumpel.
Aye. Can you record their once they get here? Or do you not?
No, we'll
You
just,
don't need to?
no,
Okay.
it'll just be a 5-0 bunch.
All right, we're gonna begin with school recognition. So let me turn it over to Dr. Schaefer.
Yes, good evening, Board of Education. Melanie and Karen, if you would please come up to the table and just, you can make yourselves comfortable, you don't have to sing. So, Amy is with us, okay, great. So, we have two of our schools here in the Thompson School District who are state award winners based on student growth and achievement as measured by the CMAS tests. So these were actually 2023 results. These were tests that were taken last year, and of course we received the results, and then the state scores them, and then gives us notification of schools that have achieved special recognition or awards. And these two schools actually are award recipients for this year. So an interesting story, every year during the April-May timeframe, the state of Colorado, downtown Denver, hosts a ceremony where they give us really nice banners, and it's the superintendent usually comes and invites the board president. So Barb and I have gone, and so waiting, and no invitation, and there was no ceremony. And so we wanted to be able to still recognize our schools appropriately. So thanks to the quick action of Laura Lee Hillers, we created our own banner and certificate, suitable for framing, of course, and hanging and probably displayed in the schools. We actually held assemblies at each of their schools just a few weeks ago, right at the end of the school year, to recognize them. We had some really good newspaper coverage as well. But we thought we would invite the principals here to the board meeting just for formal recognition and a picture. Typically, we would do this at a regular board meeting on June 19th. However, neither of them would be able to be there, and so it's a little unclimactic. And so we thought having them physically here would be good. So let me tell you a little bit about the awards that each of their schools received. We'll start with Berthoud Elementary. That's Melanie Patterson, principal. And Berthoud received the John Irwin Award. And the John Irwin Awards are given to schools that demonstrate exceptional academic achievement over time. These schools received an exceeds expectations rating, it's the highest, and the academic achievement indicator of the school performance frameworks reflecting exceptional performance in math, English, language arts, and science. And so the award is named after a former Colorado State Representative, John J. Irwin, who was a champion for public education. And so we're very proud of Melanie and her team in Berthoud Elementary School. So congratulations, Melanie. And our second award recipient, Karen Hanford, representing Truscott Elementary School, is the proud principal. And Truscott won or received the Governor's Distinguished Improvement Award, and so let me tell you about that award. The Governor's Distinguished Improvement Awards are given to schools that demonstrate exceptional student growth on the school performance framework that is used by the state to evaluate schools. These schools exceed expectations on the indicator related to longitudinal academic growth at all grade levels. So again, Truscott Elementary School, we're very proud of the school for the Governor's Distinguished Improvement Award. Congratulations, Karen. I will note that there's not, the lists are pretty short. These are fairly competitive. So, we have obviously hundreds and hundreds of schools throughout the state, and needless to say, not many receive them. So it is a big point of pride. It is something that both schools have worked really hard to achieve, and we're really proud of both of them. So I thought we could. I don't know if either one of you want to say just a quick word, as long as you're there.
Well, I'm just really, really proud of our team. I know that they are very diligent and work so very hard and put time and effort and just hours of work and planning each year into just wanting to make sure that every child in our building is able to grow and achieve. So very proud of our team and appreciative of this recognition, so thank you.
I'm going to echo the same things. Our students, I'm really proud of them as well. It takes a lot coming from a Title I building and being a dual language building where they're learning half their day in English and half their day in Spanish. So this really makes me very proud of them as well as our team, just the hard work that goes into our school each day. So, yep, thank you so much.
It's truly a huge achievement, not only for the staff, but also for the students and leadership. I know there's a lot of work that goes into these, so we're very proud of that. I don't know if the board has any questions.
Any questions, Stu?
Not a question, but a comment. Melanie, this morning I met with the Berthoud Schools Fund Board, which is the board that oversees and presents the Berthoud Bash. And I told them that tonight we were going to be honoring Berthoud L and Truscott. And one of the members of that committee said, and I'm saying this on the basis of what she said, I did not check this out, that Berthoud Elementary was the only school in northern Colorado to get the distinction of the John Donovan Award. So, another point of congratulations.
Anybody else?
I would be curious, Karen, because you mentioned you're on Title I, and plus you're very successful dual immersion. What was the secret sauce that you and your staff came up with to promote such phenomenal?
Yeah.
Well, I would say it doesn't happen overnight. So about 5 years ago, we were here presenting about being a turnaround school. And so with that, we had a lot of financial support from the state of Colorado and opportunities to be in a lot of different grants. And so this work really started about 5 or 6 years ago with just creating a climate and culture in the that was student first, really focused on social emotional learning so kids felt safe at school. Really coming out of COVID, our students did actually quite well because we had a lot of training as a staff around trauma and just what that looked like. And so we were not seeing some of the same impacts as other schools with our older students anyway. Professional learning communities, high expectations for each child. Like our 5th graders, extremely proud of them in math. Each one of our 5th graders had high growth. So when you're thinking about gifted and talented students, having high growth is really difficult. Special education students, newcomers had high growth. So when you think about those pieces, just really strong structures, relationships of kids that were really strong, that made a difference. So, and we believe in them. We believe that and expect them to exceed.
Right.
So yeah, it's really great.
Good.
Thank you.
Good time.
We would be honored if we could take a picture with you. That'd be good. We waited for Alexander. I tried to.
Welcome. Send your picture. Okay.
Show you all the bathroom because again. So, whoops, but I get we step.
The one you got to stay on, down.
Yeah, that's what we're
We are. Okay. All right.
I thought it was cheering. They look. That open.
Oh, that's not my spot.
Like,
Well deserved summer seat.
All right. Like that all.
Talking to Gordon about how much time he's going to take.
There we go. Okay, we'll do that, what we've normally done is have the presenters present, then we'll come around to questions. I'll try to keep track of where we are. We will start with 4.1, which is Head Start grant.
so.
Lamb? And then, Phyllis. Sorry.
I've reported after Shane for Melissa Schneider, Chief Academic Officer. The next two agenda items are actually for Head Start. This one is a review of our grant with our Early Childhood Director, Lam Caro. Dual reviews involve stakeholder input, the self-assessment inputs. Many of the things you've been hearing about in the last few months are all rolled up into this document. So I will just try and run everything.
So, good evening, Madam President, Dr. Schaefer, members of the board. I am very proud to be here to present going into our 5th year of our continuation grant. And so I just want to make those connections for you. The first one is about, it's really focused on student achievement and making sure it's on readiness for goals, the readiness goals for our students in a preschool setting. So we want them to be ready in social emotionally, both literacy and in math. With our inclusive and supportive culture, we want to make sure that we foster a sense of belonging, respect, and support for all of our students and our families. So we recognize that we're the first introduction to many of our families, and we want to get them involved very quickly. Within CALS, we want to make sure that we have the right people in charge of our kids. And so, as Dr. Seaver says all the time, we want the best people in front of our kids. And so we want to make sure that we have a nurturing and stimulating environment for them each and every day. And then finally, with our stewardship of resources, we just want to make sure that we maximize our impact, resources that we monitor, promote our long-term success, and more importantly, have accountability to our community and stakeholders. So the Head Start continuation grant, so really what it is going into the 5th year is just more of updates of the sections that have changed. And as Melissa alluded to earlier, it's made up of, we start November with our self-assessment, and then we continue with that with our community assessment, which also involves your parents, community members, and staff. And then we use this information to form what we want to look at in our grant, what we need to improve on the following year. And then when I think of other sources that we use also use we use academic data and attendance data pieces that help support the grant. So these are some of the big goals that we have that stay consistent. The 85% is tied directly to Head Start performance standards, and that's what's required. Goal 2 changed a little bit from the initial goal to currently because COVID changed a lot of things. And so what they allowed us to do is just see increases in participation rather than trying to track it from year to year. And then finally, it's about preparing students for kindergarten and beyond. So if you go on to the next slide, Lovely. So here's the good stuff. So in every year we set school readiness goals. And so for 23-24, we said that 88% of our 4-year-olds would be within our basal objectives for social and emotional learning. But we had 87% of our kids. So we were very close in accomplishing that. In the next slide for literacy, we said that 90% of our 4-year-olds would be within widely held. We met that. So we're very excited. And so the payoff was we spent a lot of time intentionally focused on the science of reading training that we did the year before. We've been implementing a lot of those practices this year. We're looking forward to seeing the same results next year. For language, we said that 87% of our 4-year-olds would be within widely held. And we were close, we had 84%. And so we are going to intentionally focus on vocabulary and communication and speaking skills for next year, and so that's part of the work that we'll be doing. And then finally, with mathematics, we said that 85% of our kids would be within widely held, and we had 84% of them meet that goal, so we're under 1 percentage point off. So that was amazing, and I do attribute that to the training that we did this year with Kids Play Math. Because what I heard a lot is how they were able to implement a lot of those strategies into their daily routine. So next year for 24-25, and I should preface that a lot of these goals that you'll see in front of you are based off of trend data that we have for 10 years, and they're also based off of how our 3-year-olds performed this year. So we kept the expectations high for next year. So for 24-25, we said that 88% of our 4-year-olds would be within widely held for social and emotional learning. And then for literacy, we said that 90% of our kiddos would be within widely held. So we feel that, again, what we did this year, we feel like we're going to accomplish good next year. For language, we also upped that one up to 90%, because we also feel based on what we saw with our kids this year, they're ready to do more. And then for mathematics, we also upped that to 90%. So we had high expectations, we expect that to meet that goal. So, on the next part, you can see all the parts that were part of the grant. So everywhere from service and recruitment area to engagement and transportation. And I should preface that because we're going into year 5, there are no significant changes that we're making for the upcoming school year. Everything we're doing seems to be working, and we'll continue with that work that we're doing next year. And then what you'll see in the next 5-year design is that there might be some changes coming up based on what we start with our assessments again. And also tied to that is the next slide is the information about governance, organization, management structure. And there's not a lot of significant changes there either. And then we're always on the continuous improvement cycle, and we look at things that we continue to improve on. So questions for me?
I don't know what, oh, sorry. Oh, yes. Go ahead. Not a question, more of a comment. You know, I serve on PI, so I was privy to this wonderful information. But, you know, I think I love how you're raising the bar and setting those expectations in A's County. You know, if you expect that, you know, I think the kids will do it.
Yeah.
And so, I love that you're setting higher goals.
Yeah.
So, thank you for that.
Well
Please. So is 4-year-olds this year going to do kindergarten? Does the data go with them?
yeah, so we
Does that 12 to 100?
Yeah, no.
So we share any information that we have on students with the classroom that they're going into. So they get both the whole data, and then they get a transition form that each teacher writes for each student. And so they can see how they did in class, and then there's other things about this seems to work, or these are things that you might like for ordinary, I mean, yes. So we share, and then they actually have the ability to contact this preschool teacher to have conversations about, if they have questions on me.
Is there any impact, say, if everybody did test all in with all on how we staffed at the kindergarten?
I think it's dependent on each. So they'll go through their own round of testing. So I know a lot of schools do a lot of baseline testing at the beginning of the school year to determine where we're at, so it could be diagnostic and added literacy or math. So it makes any determinations about what supports on the.
Good.
No additional questions. I submitted questions and received answers fast, so we can.
Dawn?
Thanks for saying what you said, Amy, right? Because I think the other piece of that is when we have right expectations, like we do the right things to get to those expectations, right? And you have this really rigorous program that has been thoughtful of making sure that all those things are in place as well. And then it also crosses my mind that we're talking about maybe a couple 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds who change us from getting to that number that you
Yeah.
wanted to see, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like, if we're
Yeah.
talking very small group sizes, and
Yes.
so one kid who's
So
struggling
close.
in one little way, might, you know, be the reason that we're not where we wanna be, and that's okay,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yep.
we don't all read on the same day at the same time.
Right.
It's just not how we work, so, thank you for doing all the right things and being so close.
As always, I love the Head Start presentation. I love the numbers. My only question is, I remember last year, when I had talked about whatever it is you're doing in preschool, Head Start, can we emulate that in kindergarten so that they can keep on that? And I believe Sarah had said that there was going to be a new program, a new approach.
So yes, I can speak to that. We're working on this P3 initiative. So currently, to continue that work, there's another principal myself that are participating in the P3 certificate program at the University of CU Denver. So another piece of that is also there is an upcoming week-long focus on building practices like go from preschool to third grade. It's our intent to start from pre-K and just like implement some best practices this coming fall.
So the program is still kind of being
Yeah,
developed.
still-
It hasn't actually launched.
We've started some
Some-
small things. So we have a pilot of 6 principals that we're working with. And we're starting to embed some of the practices for preschool there and then starting to do some vertical articulation. And once we get those practices in, we'll try to use great time so they have all kinds of talking process. We're seeing practices that we should see in preschool, kindergarten, and then start moving up to each group level.
Okay, because I think that's what would be really exciting to see, the same level of just growth and all of that continue on based upon
Yeah.
what you've done that's shown to work really well.
And I think that we should, based on best practices that we should be using for, especially those early learners.
Okay, thank you.
Alexandra? One question is, what impact did universal pre-K have, do you think, on the assessment and everything this year? Did it or did it not?
The only thing that, the impact for us is that typically because of the way that the TPK system was set up this year,
Rough.
we didn't have a chance to really assess kids before they came, because typically prior to TPK, we could screen all the kids before they came in the program. So because we didn't have that opportunity, what we were doing is screening it during the school year. So we were doing a lot more assessing during the school year and identifying those kids that needed additional support. But in terms of how it worked out, it worked out really well because we still got really good results this year. So
Yeah, we did.
I think we were able to flex and adjust how we needed to do things to meet the needs of kids.
Okay. And the other question had to do with the 6 principals that you're working with within our district. Are they Title I or is it just a general across?
So they're Title I and they have preschools at them. The only one that doesn't have a preschool is Trusted,
Okay.
because we were intending to try and start building something in there. So when we were able to do that, they would be able to do so.
All right. Cool. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Thank you, Len. And Alyssa, what's the next piece we?
Thank you, Madam President. So we have a cost of living adjustment for the stars, right? So,
Yeah. Okay, so Lauren. All right.
All right, so I also come to you today with the cost of living adjustment, and this ties to the human talent focus area number 3, and it's making sure that we stay competitive with other districts around us, so the COLA supports that. So as you can see for the Appropriations Act for 2024, it contained the cost of living adjustment to 2.35. So taking the 2.35, and the percentage of that is the percentage of our total grant comes out to $53,685. So the intent is to support the cost of living that was done by the Board of Education last spring, and those funds would be applied to support that. So that would actually be those funds would revert back to November 1st and go through November 1st.
Any questions for them on that? You've done that before. Denise, you're new to you. Okay. All right. These both came back to us for voting.
yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
All right. 4.3 is the state of Colorado. Oh, this is Gordon. He's got four different things, but the first one I think is kind of a standalone item. It's the resolution, the State of Colorado interest-free cash flow loan program resolution. Correct? Yeah,
There's not a creative acronym.
there is not.
Established for that just yet. So, thank you, Madam President, Dr. Schaefer, Laura, and Gordon Jones, Chief Financial Officer for the district. The first item brought forth by me tonight is item 4.3, which is the State of Colorado interest-free cash flow loan program. This is a program that the district has participated in for the last 8 years, 7 years. This year would be the 8th year. Based on the preponderance of our tax revenue, our Colorado School Finance and low levy override revenue that is collected, it creates a cash flow situation for the district. Because those tax dollars are collected in March, May, and June are the 3 heaviest months of collection, and our cash flow, it's a disproportionate share of our cash flow to how our expenditures take place, which is fairly systematic, fairly routine, fairly consistent over the 12 months of the year. So when we get to the December, January timeframe, it starts becoming a cash flow issue, not a matter of collectability, because the property taxes are a very reliable source of revenue for the district, but we just don't receive those until later in the year. This program was designed to help bridge that gap, that cash gap, where we can apply for, with proper documentation, of course, cash flow statements, coordinating with the state's partner, who is RBC Capital, that administers the program, to borrow on an interest-free basis cash advances that then, as soon as we receive property taxes typically in March, in fact it has been historically for every year of the participation in the program, whatever we have borrowed in maybe December, likely January and February, has been fully repaid in March with taxes we have received. It has to be repaid by June each year, and we've never gone past March. We've had enough collections in March to pay that back. One twist to next year is there's an opportunity, the legislature passed the opportunity for a school district to receive their dollars on a 1/9 pro rata share, so over 9 months rather than over 12 months. It's to the advantage of the district to do that, so we have applied to the state to participate in that program, meaning that we will receive our state allotment, state share of the School Finance Act over 9 months rather than 12 months, with the 3 months of tax collections that I referenced. We would not receive a state allotment, but we would get a higher amount in each of the 9 months other than those 3. So it has cash benefits there. It will allow our borrowing to be likely starting January, February, and then pay in March. So this is brought forth for the presentation of the board, just for your edification that there will be an ask at the business meeting to adopt this. It has to be approved in July. That's why it's brought forth now rather than later in the August timeframe. And the attachment that is with this is the template, the state's template that they said they has to be completed. It's the same one that we've completed.
Any questions? On that docket, there's a place where we sign. Is that what we do? Do we all have to sign a certain spot on that?
No, I believe it's the president,
Okay,
and
even though-
Lori
okay.
is going to that right now.
That will happen at the next meeting.
After approval.
Approval,
Yes.
okay.
This resolution with the blanks filled in for the dollar amount, estimated dollar amount of borrowing, and those parameters are filled in. You can see in the memo the dollar amounts of borrowing that we've had in the past. We borrowed $20 million in that program in 23, 24, and again, paid that back with our first tax payment from the county as it followed the
All right, any other questions? All right, so Gordon, I think you're here for a few more little items. He has 3 or 4.
There's the next.
Next 4, so 4.4 is the resolution of budget adoption for 2024, 2025. 4.5, resolution of appropriation, 2024, 2025 budget. Resolution of the use of beginning fund balance, 2024, 2025 budget. And resolution of 23, 24 supplemental budget adoption. And you're addressing all of those in your presentation, or do you want to talk about them right now?
3 of the 4, so
Okay.
President, with permission, I would like to defer the first 3,
Okay,
which is 4.4, 4.5, and 4.6.
okay,
to the
good.
budget presentation.
So you're gonna jump to 4.7.
That's correct, and I
Okay.
will speak briefly on that. Really, it's just a placeholder here. According to statute, the district has to adopt, or is tasked to adopt a budget by the start of the new fiscal year. We have the ability then as a district to adopt an amended budget in January, which typically trues up the beginning fund balances after the audits have been completed, and the funded pupil count after October count, and any changes at the state level from the PPR or the pupil revenue standpoint. That's an amended budget. We also have the ability anytime after that to file a supplemental budget. We are in the process of trying to evaluate and make estimates for May and June of what the dollar amounts could be that could affect, that be substantial enough to impact the budget that has been brought forth from the originally adopted budget and the amended budget, any supplemental changes that there may be. Right now, I don't anticipate any from an expenditure standpoint necessarily, but what we're researching is the movement of dollars transfer of dollars from one fund to another, primarily from what the board has approved previously for capital projects, from the use of reserves from prior years to outperformance of the budget in the prior year, to be used in the current year for capital projects. That would require a transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 43, which requires board approval. We are performing those calculations now, and we'll have the final calculations for presentation at the next meeting for a discussion and ask for action on that if necessary and warranted.
Thank you. Any questions over that? That's what. Okay, thank you, Gordon. We'll see you back here.
I will be back.
Yeah, I know. So go for it.
That wasn't a very good resume, I'm sorry.
All right, 4.8, energy performance contract extension update.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Education, Dr. Schaefer, Copper County Chief Operations Officer, joined by Kristen Batigi, our Director of Operations. Tonight, we're going to present a little information on an energy performance contract extension. Initially, the board approved the initial contract October 4th of 24th. So I will have Kristen take from here.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Schaefer, Kristen Batigi, Director of Operations. So this is really kind of the paperwork side of the presentation that we provided back in February. So where we talked about the energy performance contract. So this aligns with 4.1, alignment of resources, reflect needs, and strategic plan. So this is really around upgrading our building systems, lighting, things like that to make us efficient. As Todd mentioned, the board initially approved the investment grade audit, which gives us that report on what those improvements would be back in October. And then at the presentation in February, we talked about moving that back to this fall, as far as, you know, if we were to complete that investment grade audit, all of those points within that, and at that point decide if we want to move forward with the energy performance contract. And so this is just that paperwork side of actually extending that. So as of right now, that investment grade audit would expire on August 1st of 2024, so we want to extend that out to November 1st, just to provide sufficient time so we have all of that information so that we can make the best decision for district. Okay. Here is that timeline again. This was updated back in February along that process. So right now we're in the investment grade audit phase. We've been meeting with Schneider Electric regularly as they continue with that detailed report. And then we'll come back to the board this fall with information recommendation as far as if we were to proceed with the energy performance contract, and then would begin the implementation if that's the direction that we decided to go.
Did you create that timeline, Todd?
That's
You did.
He didn't.
He did it, really? He's like Mr. Fancy Time.
Person that did it.
Oh. Just
These
wondering.
are in a well, it's a low.
Thing,
Jacket.
I almost looked to see if there's a little train because it looked like there was smoke coming out.
Yeah.
Quite nice.
Yeah.
Have Todd kind of embed like his signature on FaceTime. Yeah. Something else that we had talked about in February as well, there are a number of funding opportunities out there that our team, in alignment with Schneider Electric as well, with their support, have been pursuing. So some of these we have already, for a number of years, been involved with. Renew Our Schools, the rebate opportunities through the City of Loveland, and we've also explored additional opportunities. Some of them we qualify for, some of them we don't. So there's more detail in there. I won't go through each of them, but we have been awarded some funding opportunities as far as electric buses, things like that. So it's exciting, and we're continuing to look for more opportunities to improve. Yeah. Okay.
Questions? Let's start with Dawn this time. Not easier.
My only question, I guess, is why do they need, what delayed did they find more stuff or?
Nope. It's really just making sure, with the original timeline, we were feeling a little rushed, a little pushed to, we don't know what the cost is necessarily before we have to make some decisions, and so we want to make sure that we have all of that information ready to go. So it's kind of just slowing down the process a little bit to make sure that we have all of the information needed so that we can provide the best record.
So then, in the November meeting, it'll be presented? Is that what, or not?
So that's when the IGA, that would be the end point for that IGA grade audit contract. IGA is not intergovernmental agreement in this case, so yes, we would present that sometime in the fall timeframe.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's a big investment for the district, so we were coming to the end, the contract was coming very close to the end, so instead of pushing, this decision through, talking through, just pump the brakes for a little bit, make sure we have everything out there in the audit, to make a recommendation either way to say, okay, this does make sense, or this doesn't make sense, so we're still close to the time frame, but this allows us a little more room to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Okay.
Alexandra?
Does changing the duration of it change at all the cost involved in the plant?
No. Okay.
Yep, that cost is set by the Colorado Energy Office, and so it's based on square footage.
No? Still?
Yep. Can you elaborate on either today or at our meeting in 2 weeks? Can you elaborate on the progress you've made on the grants and other funding opportunities related to air conditioning, HVAC update?
We can elaborate more. Like I said, after the list and specifically pull out, I don't have an update right now as far as
Can you
specific.
could you do that briefly, like at the June 19th meeting?
Yeah, I mean, as Kristen mentioned, a lot of the grants we actually do qualify for.
Yes.
So some of those we can go through. Some of them we qualify kind of roundabout way. So that's the work that Schneider is helping us do, is determine, okay, if you go for this, then add this on to make a viable project. So it's a pretty complicated web to say, here's exactly what we're doing, but Schneider's really helping us guide that process through. Because we want to make sure too that the reward we're getting is worth all the work to get to that point. obviously at this point, it's hard to say that, this one would help here, this one would help there. It's a more of a big ball of grants that we're trying to unwind to figure out what should be where.
If you can split them apart, elaborate on any of them, I would be interested in knowing that or hearing that. If you decide that you really can't do it, that's okay too, but I thought I'd make the request.
Yeah, no, we'll look into it, see what we do.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank
4.9, the project, budget and contracts for Thompson Career Campus, Center Fund expansion, TCC, excuse me, I'll get it out.
All right, thank you, Madam President.
Uh-huh.
For discussion tonight is project budget contract approval for the Thompson Career Campus. So we have previously, I guess first in line with Strive 2025, just to be transparent with our use of resources, that's really what tonight's presentation is about, is to allow some conversations to go forward underneath work policy. Just a quick recap, so as the board and community is aware, we were awarded $2 million in funding for this expansion. So $1 million from the Bohemian Foundation, which I'll say is the first large donation level, and just side note. So pretty exciting. And then Larimer County also donated in a grant style from ARPA $1 million. So the promise with this was to do a small expansion for workforce development. So tonight is really the approval will be on the 19th to say, okay, staff is ready to move forward with design and then the construction process to get this project going. So we've had just some initial meetings for planning. So the plan is to put a design advisory group together with the list of individuals you see there to start the design process. So this approval will allow us to move forward with contracting firms and really start the project implementation. And just a little highlight of what it, really the area, is $2 million sounds like a lot. It's also, it's a little tricky because we can't obviously do the massive expansion you see there. So we're looking at a smaller addition on the north side of TCC, anywhere from the 2,500 to 2,000 square feet, in a way that it'll be flexible enough. The first responders will be kind of the main pathway, but in 5 to 10 years from now, whatever it is, the goal is also make it flexible enough that we can adapt it to other pathways. So that's the goal of what it looks like.
So it's the little red square.
I'm sorry?
It's the little red square that
Yeah,
space.
I'd say it's
a little
within the
bigger?
red square, probably not that whole red square, but yeah,
Okay,
it'll be in that
okay.
area.
I just was
Yeah.
curious.
When conceptually you think of size, it's really
it's hard for me to
classroom
figure that
size.
out. Yeah,
It's
but
kind of
also
figures.
open for expansion if we have that opportunity.
Correct. So, the hope is with a future bond that there'd be expansion for what you see on the rest outside of the square also.
Okay.
So our next steps is really kick off meeting with the design group, kind of like now. Our goal is to get this open August the 25. So it's, pretty aggressive, but we have the money that's ready to go. We have everyone else set up ready to go. So now it's just time to get the work going. So design start really now, wrap it up in October, September-ish. Permitting and then start construction is the best hope. So we'll keep the board, updated as far as timelines, but that's initially how we've got it kind of planned out.
Right.
So from there, are there any questions?
Nancy, we'll start with you. Questions?
No,
Sandra, have any?
no, I think it's, isn't it right next to the health, so that they can share maybe have some co-learning opportunities, share some mannequins.
Mannequins,
I like that plan.
and the partnership's really exciting
Mhm.
because all the first responders are ready to go too. Because when you talk about workforce development, that's one piece that the entire community needs on.
Yeah, for sure. Sting?
Report, hooray.
Yeah.
You guys looked at the Adams 12 site.
So Adams 12, Cherry Creek, and actually IDS, we're actually the two of those three. One is out of state, and then Cherry Creek, I think it's Rock Canyon. Also, in Douglas, they all have a similar type pathway, so yes, that's all on this to-do list.
It's awesome. It really is. It's like you said, the fact that it goes right there by coincidence is really great, and everybody's ready to go. It's super fun. And while I was at Adams 12 for about 2 hours, maybe, I mean, it was just nonstop with first responders there in and out doing the classes, and whoever can, and they're doing real life and just. All right, anybody else?
All right, one more. This is the school resource officer contract ring update.
Absolutely unrelated.
Unrelated, that's, we also have kind of
What's the presentation?
There it is.
Yeah. Let me hit the button. Sick.
You don't think that's this document?
Oh, it's the second one down. Oh, it's the one that says IGA update. It's the PDF.
That's good.
Yeah. It says BOEIGA update.
And it's gonna just, but you know,
No, we got you.
we're going
That one.
That's up. Sorry.
So tonight for discussion is the SRO co-responder IGAs. First, in alignment Strive 2025 to ensure all facilities are welcoming, safe, inclusive, it meets the standards. You know, this is really the work we continually do, so this is really the extension of that. What I'd like to do is just highlight the changes to the IGA. So one of our goals going into the negotiations with the firms that I'll introduce here in a second is really keep the language the same. We worked hard in 2020 to really define and standardize what that language for the IGAs / MOU was. So the goal of this was really not to scrap all the work we did a few years ago, but really was just to clean up a few things. So one of those pieces we did do was we did have an IGA and then a separate MOU. So there were two separate documents executed by the board and each agency. As we've been working with those documents the last few years, we learned that you talk to legal, let's make it one document, make it more cohesive, and then we can standardize between entities. So that was really the first major shift, is we just really combined the MOU and IGA together to make one clean document. The second piece that we looked at was Uvalde. So there was also some lessons learned that we included. There was two things that really stuck out in that tragedy. Was who was in control. So there was a lot of conversation, lessons learned, and in the executive summary, there was some suggestions if you're doing this, you know, with agencies, include these pieces. Two pieces were who's in charge, who's in charge. So if there is an incident of that magnitude, you know, who's really in charge of the scene. So we define that within the IGA. And then also a joint information center, so a JIC, just to clearly define and minimize the risk of information going out here or here, you know, it defines, you know, how, when the law enforcement agency takes control of the situation, they also take control of the communication. So it's just, again, it was just another tool we had to help deepen the IGA. And then there's also the monetary piece that's included in contracts. So there was slight increases to both pay structures. So overall, the what's included in the budget next year is included. These IGAs are included in that. So then that's already been included. Just a overview of our command staff. So really what this is, just a highlight of the partnership. So, you know, somebody made me.
Got your back.
Yeah. So maybe we just 50 questions. I think it's important that you know, as we've established a partnership in the last several years, these are really the individuals that we work with daily to help make sure our mission's flying. So, go ahead.
Sergeant Barnes, Lobo. My lieutenant just had to step out for emergency.
I'm Lieutenant Jeff Van Hook, Laurel County Sheriff's Office.
I'm Jennifer O'Connell, Summit Stone Supervisor.
That's it. Papa.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the next slide here, this is the identified assignment. So the other thing we did slightly different this round was we also included elementary schools within the IGA. We said, okay, if you're specifically for Loveland, you know, if you're within this feeder system, here's the elementary schools that you will cover. So in general, you know, we have the 4 high schools covered, the 3 SROs cover the middle school K-8. We also have through Loveland the co-responder SRO in English. Within this IGA, we include the elementaries. We just want to make sure there's always been a good involvement with elementaries, but just to make sure that the expectations there are right. So that's what you see within Loveland's IGA. The contract you'll see is about an increase of $130,000. Last year was $750. Going into next year will be $887, and that includes the SRO for co-responder. Sheriff's Office, you can see, is Bertha Turner. They also have one clinician but then a co-responder SRO. Something a little different within the Larimer counties, we didn't include the specific elementaries they cover because of just the wide range of area. Because you can imagine if someone's in Turner and Bertha, we have an incident at Carey Martin or Big T, you know, it may not be that supervisor, that SRO that responds, it may be another deputy. So what they will cover as far as elementaries is Carey Martin, Big T, Ivy, Bertha, and they cover Johnstown. Oh, and Cottonwood, yeah. So they will expand out to that area. Although Cottonwood's within Fort Collins, they do help cover that as well. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So again, it wasn't specific within this IGA, but that was something that that's how we really worked it out because it's more on response time than it is specific feeder setting. And then Summerstone, you know, I would again applaud this partnership. When you look at the deputy with the county and now Bobby Joe, who has a position with her, you know, I mean, we've all talked about it enough, but again, just to put a highlight on this corresponder unit, it's done really amazing things for the district. But you know, what you'll see as far as the increase, the difference is we were at 151 annually for the one clinician. It's now 302 for the additional approved clinician through Sunstone. So from there, I will take any questions.
Word Alexander this time.
So I do have a question back on the, can you go back to the Larimer County one? So with the elementary schools covered by the SROs, are those the same SROs that are at Berthoud and Turner, or are those different people, or who are those people?
It's typically that we do try to have Turner Berthoud respond if they're there, or really our corresponder with the county responds.
Okay.
But if they're tied up, or you know, there's someone closer, then there will be another response from someone else.
Which would be from, like, the sheriff's?
Would still be from county, yeah, if it's
Okay.
those elementary schools.
But it wouldn't be like necessarily actually a SRO, it would be just like a sheriff's
It could
deputy.
be, just a deputy.
Okay.
Questions? I need questions?
Alexandra asked a question.
Okay.
Or thank you, Alexandra.
Sure. All right. Nancy.
I was curious, so for the Loveland Police Department, the $137,000 increase, which is like 18%, the sheriff's is 4%. So what, are they just sheriff's office exempt from inflation?
I want that bubble.
No one's exempt. In the Loveland Police Department, there was, we've not paid Loveland for their equipment cost. Previously, we have sheriff. So actually, when you look at the cost breakdown, it's more about equipment increase than it is a little bit of people with more equipment. So within the sheriff's number, there's equipment costs already baked into that number and has been. Loveland is never, we haven't gone down the road with Loveland, so this year, to be respectful, we increase that mostly for equipment costs. So equipment as far as, you know, everything they carry, cars and all those pieces. So that's really the main difference is providing that equipment cost.
So is there an actual contract with the LTD that has all of that breakdown? Because all I saw was the IGA that's for the co-responder.
No, it should have been attached.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, so the county, it's still a lump sum number, but the thing we did different this time is we did a 3% escalator to limit the amount of increase.
Okay. Because the IGA that is in here, all three are the same. That Loveland Sheriff, they all have the same $302,000.
Yeah, they're definitely different. The ones right here are different, so, let me see what got up.
Here, little-
Yeah.
Because I was asking, and she meant, so that's why I was asking, because they're all the same. And I don't think you meant that.
No, the language is very similar, but the costs are definitely different. It's 302 compared to the 887.
Yeah, maybe something got uploaded because they're all the. If I sent over an email, could you give me the number 137, how much is staff and how much is equipment?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, we can break that down.
Okay.
Because we even have it broken down, you know, by day and how much they charge by day, so we have all that broken down. And that is one difference in these IGAs is there's a 3% increase kind of cap on the equipment.
Okay.
Yeah, I can definitely look that up.
And then maybe send me the actual contract to work with me, because I'll let this is.
Yes, it should have been attached, if it's not, then, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
there's three of them and they all have different headings, but they read all the same.
Yeah, because there should be one for co-responders.
Yeah, there
County
is.
and LPD.
But once you open them up there, I'll read exactly the same.
Yeah, so we'll upload the,
Okay.
yeah.
Wait. Okay, anything else? Any other questions?
I guess I do have one. Do we have services with Johnstown? Do we have we did the contract out with Digital Cycle, right?
We did that in a different cycle. We did ask Johnstown now, they, like, the staffing right now is a challenge, so we're just gonna hold contracts as is. We're not getting charged for Johnstown next year, so we have a way to cover it.
Great.
Until we work through that, yeah. Please.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you. Right. I believe we have Melissa coming back up again. This is for 4.10, school, no, 4.11. First reading policy JHA, JHBA. Sounds bad, doesn't it?
Say that now 3 times as fast as you can.
Student absences and excuses. Melissa.
Or Dr. Schaefer with me. I have Theo Robeson, Executive Director of Secondary Education. He will walk you through this policy change, but it is a simple one, if I may say so, just to number one, update policy that's 11 years old and be in better alignment with our state law. So,
So greetings, Dr. Schaefer, you report Theo Robeson, Executive Director of Secondary Education. So our current 2020 Strive 2025 practices, this lines with this focus oriented, and then our goal here is to ensure that our students, we have a more clear policy that aligns with the board policy, with best practice with TSD, and to better support our students overall. And so the background on this, so basically this policy hasn't been updated since September 13, 2013, and with that there were some changes that need to be made, which will provide a strong update for our excuses policy here at Thompson School District. And so in summary, this policy and the income-free regulation have been updated to reflect the current Thompson School District practices and terminology, as well as the Colorado Department of Education guidelines. So if you had an opportunity to read the policy and the regulation, are there any questions that you would have?
You're right. So, I'm gonna defer to Amy if you have questions over any of this. I always print out the red, so it's easier for me to see the red lines, so I can see, but I didn't have any. Denise, did you have any questions or? I think I'm. Still?
I submitted a couple of comments. Thank you for getting back to that.
Okay.
Sorry, this is totally because it's reading the packet way later than I should have. There is the comment about how each high school is still deciding what's tardy individually. I'd really like to fix that if we can't before we do it this time, hopefully like next year. Just because, you know, I know there's a wide variety of what is acceptable, and it would be nice to know that there's still some consistency, right? I mean, whatever number we put, I think from considering that so many tardies are still out of the student's control, it's important for the person who's driving the student to be able to know that 5 minutes is my window or 10 or whatever that is. And so that was the dropped off the page I mean, because it was the one thing that's still allowed for a bunch of different ways we do it.
So our goal this year is to have some sort of a task force with principals that help us better define what the spending situation should look like, so we're more aligned as honest with systems. Please.
Look at you, you're already on it. Thanks. It's not as left field as I thought.
Just one.
Nancy?
Okay.
Sandra?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, I have a couple of questions.
I don't know what happened to the red line, but I couldn't find it.
It was there, but now it's not.
So it got reloaded this afternoon. You have to.
I just opened.
There.
So it's not just me?
Diligent went on summer vacation.
It is loaded. I mean, it's right here.
Is it? The red one?
Red line right here.
See, I don't have that.
You need to refresh your screens.
But even though I just don't. Okay. I'm sorry, I really rely on the red line.
I just did.
Here, I'll-
It's not showing up in ours. But anyhow.
And I can't read that up there, so.
Well, I can make it bigger.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah. While she's looking, I'm gonna ask Phil, I'm gonna ask you also. I know you're pulling the principals together to work on timeline or absences, and are there other pieces that the high school need to be coming together on?
So the number one thing, I believe is what Dawn just explained, is the fact that different schools allow different practices around what's considered to be a tardy.
Okay.
And so we want to end the amount of time that a tardy becomes an unexcused absence.
Okay.
So those are some of the things we want to really charge ourselves with. That's not finance.
So you want to stay focused on that as far as what you're saying is a GFs. Yeah, you don't lose it. I beyond. Okay, Alexandra, did you find it?
Well, I don't know specifically, but I guess sort of a question in regards maybe more to your task force looking at consistency and stuff like that is I don't know like how much follow-up there is or what is the consistency and follow-up as far as when kids have these multiple absences. Like where it talks about, I'm trying to find, and I sort of have like where it says, where's the part about the parent responsibility? Where is that?
B under.
There's like a section where the school has a plan that they will try to coordinate with the
Right.
parent, guardian, and
Oh,
then the
Yeah,
next section.
and then like, so the parent guardian responsibility for school attendance, B4, says that their responsibility is to contact the school and request a conference with the appropriate administrator or teacher upon notification from the school that the attendance is a concern, which that seems a little strange to me, that the parent would be like notified that the attendance is a concern, and then the parent would be the one required to reach out to the school to schedule a conference. And I don't think that's being communicated. I know someone who has gotten such of these letters, and it was never communicated that we were supposed to schedule this conference with the school, and no further follow-up happened. You know, we were told our child was delinquent, and that was it. Nothing happened after that. And so I think if in these situations, I kept expecting, like, is somebody gonna call us? Are we gonna talk about this? And nothing happened. And so that would be a question about, like, we have this policy, but is the follow-up happening? And again, I think it's inappropriate to say that the parent responsibility is to contact the school to schedule the conference.
So
Pretty feedback.
Yeah.
that is really good. And so one of the things about compulsory attendance is that once students get to a certain number of out-of-school absences, then technically the school will send them the letters, and then they actually schedule an attendance contract meeting once that's in violation. So technically that's the way the law is written. But that's a good thing for us to go back to
But that's not, I mean,
practice.
I don't know about across the board, but I know that's not consistently happening.
Thank you.
I can speak from experience that it's not happening in another high school either.
Yeah.
Good information. Anyways, good reason to pull this policy in.
That's why we have parents in the school board.
To our kids for testing it out.
My child has quite a few tardies too. It's another high school.
Yeah, so there we go.
Sounds like we need a task force.
She graduates next year.
I almost didn't want to bring it up, and, you know, my daughter's not gonna like it. I'll put, my kids graduated, so I can throw them under the bus. And so that was the one thing, and then the other question I had, it was related, I guess the other question, when you talk about sort of the age, as far as like the habitually truant and contacting like law enforcement and so on and so forth. I mean, I don't know that it said law enforcement, but something like that. I mean, probably not law enforcement, but notice formatting, the compulsory, I know there's something that it talks about, the Colorado Department of Education guidelines. And like, isn't there, and then it talks about like the dropout, right? And there's, in here it talks a little bit about the different like ages of things, but obviously there's a big difference between a kindergartner missing all these classes versus a 16, 17, 18-year-old, right? Who I think at that age is not legally required to go to school anymore. And so I don't know if maybe that's part of, you know, and I don't feel like that's in here that specifies that.
Thank you for that.
Can you speak? I know it's not in the document, but I think those are.
Are they?
Yeah. I think that's why it's like that, but it's worth
Well, maybe,
like,
but I
double-checking,
would
right?
like to, I'd like that clarified, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I guess that's it.
It's where
Kids given on
parents.
We all have the same hair.
She doesn't have it at all. She has it, but she can't open it.
I had it at one point, but I don't have it now.
I know you're
The red
I know
line.
you're really bummed
Yeah.
I don't have your questions, so.
Okay. Where are we? Did we get all the way around? I think we got
that was the
that.
end.
Okay, all right. Do you have the information you need?
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Goodbye.
Sorry. And 4.12 is just the standard action consent items that will be on our next packet, which comes for the 19th. Okay?
Keep trying.
All right. So we're gonna set this all aside, and Stu has time for Casby, okay? And I'm gonna ask, is there chocolate in that? It's time.
Well, she could pass it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go offline for a minute.
Oh, there, yeah, see, it did say that. I knew there was something in there. Habitually truant in pursuing court proceedings against the student. And there. I wasn't crazy. Yeah, if they're habitually truant, they can take up to
Stu,
court.
you don't need much.
Do we ever
Stu,
do that?
Well,
you don't need me to
I don't
present during yours, do you?
I'm
gonna
thinking
start
probably
with
it's not, but I don't know.
Why put it in there?
Yeah.
So, well, we might just choose, oh, did you hear that? Did you see that?
Sorry, I was trying to find the thing.
Okay.
All right,
That's why being habitual.
Are we ready? We're ready. Well, I guess technically I'm the presenter for this part of the agenda, but I prefer to use the term taskmaster. And I'll explain. My legislative update is very brief. I attended CASB's virtual wrap-up session on the 22nd. I know you all received an invitation to attend that as well. It's really a wrap-up. There was very little new information that I haven't already shared with you. If I did take notes, if anybody has any questions about particular bills, now would probably be the time to ask, or you can email me. And also last Wednesday, Mark sent us the legislative wrap-up case. So I think we're probably adequately wrapped up. So what I'd like you to do now is take a look at the packet. You have a several-page packet in front of you. The first page says local community issues. You've actually seen this page before. The bottom half of that page is local school district issues. That when you looked at the sample legislative platforms that I brought from CASB, I asked you to mark the ones, the general categories or the issues that you felt were most significant here. And the top 6, beginning with behavior and discipline, ending with student and staff mental health, were the ones that had more than one person who indicated that that was a significant district issue. So we decided the last time we talked about this, that for our first stab at a legislative platform, that we would include these 6. So let's very quickly go through your packet, and then we're going to do something with some of the pages. All right, the next page is statements chosen by board members. Notice that the first 2 items on that page were identified by either 3 members of our board or 2 members of our board as being ones that they would like to see included in the legislative platform. The ones below were selected by 1 board member. Let's go to the next page, which is statements chosen by board members dealing with accountability or academic achievement. 3 of the statements, 2 from Littleton, 1 from Adams 12, were identified by 2 board members. And then the items below were each selected by 1 board member. The next page is entitled Miscellany, and these are either issues that weren't necessarily related to any of the 6 key issues, or they were comments that we made, that members of our board made while going through that exercise. The next page is sample introductions and preambles to a legislative platform, 1 from Doug Coe, 1 from Jeff Coe, 1 from Adams 12, and then finally a copy of the Douglas County School Board legislative priorities. Let's take a little bit more, let's see, going back up here, Denny, let's look at the funding page again. You know, I think I've given enough kind of overview information. What I'd like to do for a few minutes is to divide us up into 2 groups. A group of 3 that would work on funding, and using your own copy of the funding page, talk with the other people who are in your group, choose the ones that you would like to include in our legislative platform. If there's time, you could also put those in order. In regard to the accountability and miscellany pages, they're actually both shorter than funding. So I'm thinking that we can accomplish what we need to with a group of 4 that at least initially would begin with 2 people working on accountability, the other 2 people working on miscellany. And then if there's time, we'll share thoughts with each other. So with that as an introduction, it seems like it would make sense, since 3 people are already on that side of the table, would you be willing to work on the funding page, the 3 of you?
Yes.
And then 4 of us over here to divide 2 and 2. I'd like to work on miscellany because it's easier for me to be the person who's one of the 2 than to try to explain to 2 people who don't know quite how this part of it is going to work. So we'll take about 15 minutes and go ahead and mark your copies. And then at the conclusion of the time, I have a separate page that one person.
Are you guys miscellaneous or accountability?
That would be fine, however you want to split. You want to do it that way? Dawn, you okay with that? You're good with me? Okay, I'm sorry. No, sorry that she has to work with me. That's what that is. Okay. Okay, so I'll kind of keep an eye on the time. About 6:30, we'll stop with where we are. I'll explain the summary page that I'd like each group to work on, and then we'll move on into other items for the meeting. So, everybody understand what to do to start with?
I don't think I do.
Okay, ask me a question.
Like, so if Nancy and I are working on accountability,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't understand exactly what we're supposed to do with the paper we have.
What
that
you're
has-
gonna do, Alexandra, is look at the statements that are there.
Okay.
Probably paying particular attention to the 3 statements that 2 board members thought were important.
Okay,
Decide if you agree, and then you would say, yes, I think that these statements should be part of our section on accountability, academic achievement, and then move on to the 3 that were selected by 1 board member, discuss those briefly, and then make the same decision.
okay.
That answer your question?
Sure.
Okay,
We can try.
all right. Let's hit it then.
Wait 10 minutes, but I don't know, like, you ain't supposed to spend it with me. I mean, okay. So, yes, likes the waste. Say that about, I don't guess it's 1 person, because I think by the okay, so any night is forcing, where he wants us to complete what else there are. Options, like, which one, 5 minutes. Well, they did, yes, but that's when I do the other length. I mean, like that. I mean, I think you want full play best things, right? You don't want to judge. I just think they do the 4 schools, just one, just one test or one thing. I think it has to be time, right? It has to, I mean, it's clinically one grade, 1 and 2, right? All right, it's pretend never on that time right? So you're getting results that you don't know so I agree with that. Expectations to and I think yes. I mean, out of these 3 I would see there's one cross kind of not just with spouse, it also has some just true.
Then these
We have to so least right. Well, as like
Yeah. No, I agree.
sometimes they
utilize the littlest for expert.
and I know
Yes.
very good. I like this book of structure, infrastructure, the legislative students, the medals. I mean, I just like their adjectives, the movement, also improve, to go to benefit, quality, color.
I do like under what is meaningful and useful to see how.
Last time, because the room is 600 people, Kipro, 600 before.
Yes.
So that, yeah,
But I
that was
was
sort of Pearson, but that's really sort of important on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that really define that?
We could define it.
We've got
I mean, I sort of wonder if rather than saying praise is being honorable, can I go useful ways?
Yeah.
Schools to be accountable.
Yeah. Legislation first.
Parents and whatever.
Let's start at the bottom. Because the
So, populate those positions.
But I would stay right, that's what I was thinking, not like a ladder, I do that, I mean, they got like ours. When I looked at
Me too. It's almost like a Captain Obvious.
right, if we don't.
I also kind of like us too. About redesigning. I just think this is so dislike stuff.
Right.
I think Jan gets the
Totally, so schools.
different to
Right. I like that.
Yeah, what you mean, it's just
Right.
minutes.
Right.
So should that be supposed to be reverse?
So let's just say which ones are.
Cool.
It's so sweet. And the five, we're going to three.
So that's sort of part of like
They count.
When I get to five,
it's like creating new grammar.
because, you know, with the,
Yeah.
rolling,
Yeah.
because we should.
I wanted to maximize our time.
Girls, not just grades.
Oh, I see.
The one word has that to a high level of sharpentation. It's so high, but I can't, I say too high, it's.
I was again, we just say hi.
South good math, so get them, keywording.
They're based against right experience.
Sure. But anyway, so yeah, so I have your advice. I mean,
That just allows other elected officials to be partners and understand the complexity of issues.
What if
Go to
we
school space.
have that things like.
yeah,
So the Jeff Conway officials
takes place.
all of these things.
Right.
And puts it into like
Yeah, I
four
think they
simple
both need to be
steps.
there.
Right.
Here's the reason why.
Yeah, so
This is school board work to improve. This one is the legislature, these are the lawmakers. These are the part of the district that
Never participated in
mentioned
this before.
how
this is the
Yeah.
but it's really nice to be able to tell us what's happening. So they know what
They need to know.
you know,
Yeah.
so, that's sort
If something happens.
yeah.
You want to do anything?
Not at this time.
I didn't figure it yet. We can clear the news.
So I guess if we said,
That addresses the right.
I mean, that could be sort of number one, because it, like you said, it's sort of
So
says
it's still
everything else.
Yeah, I mean, if you read like all of these, it kind of is.
Some of the school
I mean,
districts
it talks about the family,
has
it talks about what the high expectations, it talks about
the other two.
bios, which is understand. It talks about accurately, comprehensively securing, which is sort of like using the full body of evidence.
And it talks about
You know, there's, so yeah, that's sort of encompasses.
because Adams 12 says timeless.
Right, like, I think we should have a statement.
This one says full body. This one says accurately and comprehensively.
Useful gets everything.
So that's kind of.
It kind of is that, or it could even accurately, comprehensively measures advances. Students are in progress, I mean, utilizing a full body of evidence, right?
That one was better.
Oh, it was.
Now you kind of
Oh,
combine
it was you?
Right.
it. I guess this one about policy, but it's in slate start too, that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I think that would provide this too. And I don't think this out is for
Yeah.
the accountable, even though I don't think as much just because it's so big.
Like you said, you see this position.
And then legislative,
No, I think that's what we should be making in the CD to
Well,
continuously produce.
right, or there, I mean, yeah, I don't. Have a lot of other persons. So I think let's say, we say, let's say message number one.
Jeff Green.
Suggest
Possible.
and then the others are.
that's your.
I mean,
I mean, yeah.
if you look, read these,
Right.
these are kind of combined against, except these are like section. And that's what those.
Okay.
This is our work here, so we get to know. I've been riding my bicycle before. And I can go to the right, and turn right, or cause I got into whatever that county road is, so I rode right by here.
Oh, Jenna.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous start for you to be on that bike.
I do it early in the morning
It's still
when
dangerous.
there's hardly anybody there.
It's kind
And
of.
I don't ride home that way. I ride
This
home
one's more.
and go further. I go further east and come home down the bike path. By my like, I'm just too busy.
When we first moved there, wasn't anywhere near the traffic we face now.
Yeah.
We want this.
I know, there's no.
No.
So yeah, in the mornings it's fine, because I go early. And there's hardly anybody there.
All right, I'm going to interrupt us for just a second. Are the other two groups at a point where you can report anything to us in regard to decisions? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's do that quickly in about 5 minutes or so. Let's do it. All right, let's start with funding then.
So,
Folks, maybe you all want to look at your funding page.
we narrowed it down to 5 statements, which
Okay.
we'd like to play with, but thematically, the first one was the one that the 3 members around the school thing, just update it. And then we went to the Adams 12 second bullet, saying, let's do something different, and what are the reasons why. Then we jumped down to our third one, was the Adams 12 second from the bottom. So we are interested with this legislation to help they solve these problems. And back up to Jeffco's 4th bullet, and really asking for engagement from legislators to, make these priorities and help the fund what needs to happen to have kids have good experiences. And then 5th, we're talking about very specifically the types of things we believe need to be funded.
Ready?
Oh, which is not on here, that's something.
Denise, I'm going to give you this and ask you if you will kind of make a master copy of what you just read, and then give that back.
Number 5 is, you guys, is that the separate one?
The number 5 is the bottom.
Oh, the bottom.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
okay. I didn't hear that.
Okay, anything else from the 3 of you, or any questions from this side of the table? Okay, do you want to go ahead and report then on accountability and achievement? If you want to look at your page on that.
Okay, so we basically chose that the third, the Jeffco one with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, pretty much encompasses a lot of the other ones into one cohesive statement. We thought the third one, the little 10 that says the core responsibility of the local school board is to adopt and implement policies, we felt like that was sort of unnecessary or not. I mean, that sort of is known to be true. And then the Adams 12 one down below, the middle one that says schools must be accountable in meaningful and useful ways, we felt like that was sort of a little too vague to really be like, what is meaningful and useful mean? And so we crossed out both of those, and then we felt like leaving the ones that remained, the full body of evidence one, the testing, providing valuable and timely feedback, and those sort of all were encompassed in that Jeffco one. So we reworded some stuff in there a little bit that seemed weird, and we added some bits that I can give you, like copy, Stu, but we thought that one was sort of encompassed what we thought it should.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Questions? All right, Alexander, I'm going to send down a clean copy of your sheet, and if you would update that for me and then give it back to me. Dawn and I talked about miscellany, you could slide talk and you can jump in as necessary. Looking at that page, one of our members liked Adams Club's statement about charter schools. We think that maybe for our first stab at a legislative platform, particularly since only one person chose that as something to talk about, that we were suggesting that we would not include that in our first legislative platform. The next one, community decision-making, probably not. When we look at what Douglas County provided in regard to governance, which we'll do at the retreat, we think that probably there's some information that's part of that governance section that actually deals with this. The next 4 items on the sheet that say one board member are not actually legislative platform statements. They're opinions about wording and things like that. These opinions were all registered after we looked at the sample platforms from Douglas, or from Adams 12, Jeffco, and Littleton. One of us believed that positions is a more impactful term than principles. As we talked about that more, we thought maybe we should use language that we already use in our district. The comment believes priorities should be updated every year, not necessarily. We may want to give something a couple of years or even 3 to determine if that's really a position that we want to take. Dawn and I both remember the format of the Littleton document. It was the one that was primarily in bullets rather than in paragraphs. I don't know if you remember it from when you did that exercise. We both liked that a lot. We probably couldn't have the whole document in bullet form. We might need some sections that are paragraph in length, but we both liked the brevity of the Littleton model. The next one, one of us liked the use of strong words that demonstrated action. Yes, when possible, we'll keep that in mind. And then in regard to the guiding questions for proposed legislation, which is the bottom part of that sheet, we both liked the fact that we thought that those questions guided or provided some guidance for the development of legislation. We might not use all of them, we might reword some of them, but we thought that they had value. So that's it for today. And what we will do at the retreat is we will take a look at the work we did today. We will also examine the sample introductions or preambles that you also have in your packet. We're going to look at those tonight. And we'll also take a look at the Douglas County document, which is provided in more length than we've seen from some of the others. Reason being that 4 of the issues that we identified as being important, behavior, discipline, staff retention, equity and inclusion, and student and staff mental health, were not covered in the 3 samples that we looked at before. Douglas County looks at them very briefly. I've asked Dr. Schaefer through some of his contacts, either with National School Board or CASE or some other entity that he has contact with, to look for some more examples for us. What Douglas County has provided us is a beginning, but that's all it is. And so he will have those for us also at the retreat. So,
Stu, could I just, so I'll certainly be happy to look for those. Because these are legislative platforms, meaning state laws enacting. So when we look at things like behavior and discipline, staff retention, they may or may not lend itself directly to legislation. So I know there's some So I'll do my best to
All
look
right.
through it, but these are definitely local school district issues, no question. But for like a legislative platform, I'm not sure where there's going to be the alignment, but I'll look.
I think you may find quite a bit on staff retention because Douglas County actually has a section in their legislative platform dealing with staff attraction and
Great,
retention. So,
I'll definitely take
so as you're looking, whatever you can find will help us.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, we're gonna turn this right over to Gordon. He's been pacing.
Time starts now. Nope, not too acidic, I know.
What should we have open? This?
Yes, that is the
This is what we
presentation.
want. Okay.
The document is the presentation.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So, thank you, Madam President. At the suggestion, advice, directive from my immediate supervisor, I've been asked to, my intent is to keep my comments fairly brief and allow substantial time for question and answer. If anybody has any interest, the line has been set at 15 minutes.
And I took the over.
I wrote the time
So right
down.
now, I'm sorry,
I wrote the time down.
I went way over.
so if I'm talking very fast, there's a reason for why that is. The document that you have in front of you is the proposed 2024-25 budget for Thompson School District. I won't go into detail other than making it on the process, other than saying it's a lengthy process. It started around the beginning of January, and the result of a lot of work from a lot of people throughout the organization, soliciting input, comments, questions, requests, not the least of which is conversations with the board that we've had during negotiations, and the scaffolding approach that has been used, the presentations that I've done there really should be no surprises in this budget, the final put together document for the board to consider, because it's information that has been readily discussed in previous board meetings with updates that I've done. So my intent here is to go rather quickly through the contents of what each page is, and as I said before, allow adequate time for questions, comments, suggestions, those types of things. So, diving right in, on page 3, really the basis for our budget from a revenue standpoint, from the School Finance Act standpoint, is the student membership, which translates into funded pupil count, which translates into per pupil revenue, which translates into total program. So on the first page, you'll see the comparisons of actual October count for this year versus the budget for 24-25, and then what those changes are. Student membership, very little change, but student funded pupil count does show a larger change at 217.2 for Thompson School District. That's primarily because of the averaging mechanism, the reductions in the averaging mechanism, and a fairly substantial increase in PPR of $700 per month. Page 4 takes that information for the state share, the School Finance Act, I should say, SFA. You'll see a consistent theme on these from a revenue standpoint, broken down for Thompson School District, New Vision, and Blue Level Classical, with a reminder to the board and the community that those, the charter school entities, we are a pass-through entity for those from a revenue standpoint, both from the School Finance Act and the MLA. So you can see the changes that take place there from year to year, the increase largely associated with the increase in PPR. The next page, page 5, talks about no levy overrides in the top half. You've heard me mention multiple times that we have 3 MLOs that have been approved by voters in the district, and 23-24 fiscal year is the first year that the 25% cap called for by statute has been reached by the district. So you'll see that reflected in these numbers as well. An increase nonetheless, because in our MLOs for the 2018 MLO, because the increase in total program went up markedly. And the bottom part of this slide shows our other revenue items, from categoricals that we have to specific ownership tax, which is not part of the School Finance Act, this portion of it. Universal pre-K is still a bit of a question mark out there. There's some challenges with planning and budgeting for that appropriately, but see the best estimate that we can make right now, and then our other revenue. Page 6, which, Laura, if you could help me, I can't see.
Yeah, I'm keeping up for you.
Okay, thank you. I'll set the clicker there.
Yeah.
Now we move on to expenditures for the district. And I should mention, there will be a slide in this deck that pulls all these pieces together into one comprehensive page. So now we talk about costs, full-time equivalent costs, broken down by license, classified, and APT. Different from the revenue, the charter school portions are not included in the FTE costs. These are just TSD costs. So again, broken down between salaries and benefits for each one of our employment classifications. The final measures that have been instilled in these is from the license standpoint, increasing every cell in the salary schedule by $3,300, making the starting teacher pay $53,300, awarding steps for all people, and assuming steps for all people, and column movement for 20%, I believe, of the population, the licensed population moves columns. That yielded a 7.02%. All of those changes yielded a 7.02% increase overall average for the licensed staff. That same 7.02% was added or implemented for APT staff as well, and classified staff with an interest of the board of seeing what additional might be able to be done. That was an 8% increase for classified staff. The non-FTE costs, while it looks brief and summarized below, it is, but there are other documents in this presentation that show much more detail, line by line detail in all of those categories that you see summarized there. Speaking of those non-FTE costs and what makes those up, this was a slide that was implemented last year in the deck, and I think it does tell a good story. It's taking the top 10 categories from a non-FTE standpoint and showing what those are. I think it's important to note that you say, well, it's only 10, and when we get to the page or the section of non-FTE costs, you'll see it's nearly 300 lines of detail. And you've boiled that down to 10? Yes. And that 10, those 10 top items make up 47.9% of our total non-FTE costs, excluding the transfers to the charge. So it is almost half of our total non-FTE expenditures are reflected in these top 10 items. Page 8. This also was implemented last year at the request of the board to see more details perhaps on where the dollars are being spent. So special education is a significant expenditure area for the district. So again, you can see in rows 1 through 13, numbered on the left, about $22.3 million of dollars that are spent for special education, and the categorical funding, which you'll see in the other revenue, is about $6 million, so about 27% of our total special education costs do we receive funding from the special ed programs. Page 9 is that summarized document that I referred to, so you can see on a summarized basis revenue for the School Finance Act, mill levy override, and other revenue to get to an estimated amount of $213.9 million for revenue next year. Then the expenditures, the FTEs and the non-FTEs that are detailed on the previous slides, about 216.9 million of expenditures, which leads us to just under a $3 million use of reserves. That is a very intentional use of reserves, emphasized by the board, by Dr. Schaefer, and Cabinet as they looked at the budgets for each of their specific areas. That's not maintainable for long-term in the future. This is intended to be a one-time use of reserves that the district has to be able to address primarily a competitiveness from a labor standpoint, as well as some significant increases as you saw in the top 10 items. Utilities, an expected large increase that we wouldn't necessarily expect in the future, some of those items, but very intentional of having that use of reserves and planning on that being a one-year solution.
Courtney, and I interrupt you with just a quick question.
Please.
I know that in the past, at least once, maybe twice, as you presented us with the budget, you identified key pages in the document. Is this one of the key pages, page 9?
Absolutely. This is a snapshot of the general fund. I should emphasize, this is the general fund.
I thought I recognized this. Any of the previous 8 pages you would consider key pages, or is this really the first one?
From a person that has worked intensely in this document, I would say every page is an important page.
Say that.
I, of course, agree with you. But can we be ones that are maybe even a little more key than
Yes.
others?
Yes, we can. Page 9 is an important document, and if there's further details that are information that is of interest to you or the community, that's available on the previous slide. So there should be on those more in-depth revenue, non-FTE, all those. There's other pages that support these particular pages.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to page 10. This is just I think this is helpful for people that don't deal with in this area. If you have any interest in the account codes and what we use and how CDE requires us to report our budget and our financial reporting, our ACFR, our annual comprehensive financial report. These are called program codes. It's very prescriptive by CDE of what costs and items, primarily expenditures. This is expenditures. What program code they should go into and a description of each of those categories. This then, there's been detailed slides before. This is a little more detailed on from a program code and by category standpoint. But again, it's required by statute that we have to report by program code on the budget and our annual reporting. So that's what this attempts to do, to break down into those key items that were described on the previous page, those program codes. And then the bottom portion of this, rows 13 through 19, are really the main categories from an expenditure standpoint of licensed FTE, classified FTE, APT, FTE, and non-FTE, and then charter school PPR and other allocations broken out separately. Again, that detail has been on the previous revenue slides, but it shows from both a PPR and an MLO perspective the dollars that are getting transferred onto the charter schools. Further detail by category, by program code, breaking down each one of those program codes, which are bolded in blue here, with what those main expenditure categories are: licensed, classified, APT, and non-FTE. Hopefully with the numbers all tying out and agreeing with the totals that we've seen on some of the pages before. Starting on page 13, this is from an FTE perspective, broken down again by the main employment classifications of licensed, classified, and APT. Shows the level of budgeting that we do with the templates. Please know there are many, many templates behind these more summarized documents that roll up to this. With the RFI request that was provided to the board last week, it provides a bit more detail on these items as well, a bit more in-depth. But these are the main categories as you look through the descriptions that you can see where the staffing takes place for licensed on page 13, classified on pages 14 and 15, and administrative professional technical or APT on pages 16 and 17. Again, a comparison of budgeted FTE counts for 23-24 versus budgeted FTE counts for 24-25. Now we get into the document on page 18 that I referenced of nearly 300 pages, 293 to be exact, of line item detail of those non-FTE expenditures. So this is accumulated from the budget templates that we asked each department to prepare, to submit. All this is consolidated. The top 10 list that you saw, that is 47.9% of this total list in those top 10 categories. The purpose of the highlighting in yellow that you see, those are transfers out of the general fund to other funds, primarily for capital projects, which is funded out of the general fund but transferred to Fund 43, which is capital projects, so they can be managed and recorded in more detail in the separate. The last comment I'll make on this is on the right-hand side, you'll see those are object codes, again, very prescriptive by CDP standards. Salaries are 100s, benefits are 200s, so on as you go through those main 5 or 6 categories for relative costs. The general fund is not the only fund that the district maintains, but that is the largest and the most significant. That's why the first half of this presentation or this document is related to the general fund. Now we describe what the other funds are that the district maintains, and I won't go through the list, but there are a number of other funds that have very specific purposes that are maintained by the district as well.
What page is up there right now?
This is 18.
18? 18.
No,
Yeah.
now you're on 20.
So that's the 300 rows of detail for the non-FTE expenditures. And then if we move on to the next page, 23, is a description of the other funds that the district maintains. Page 24 is, this is another page that I would call out as being important that anybody was looking at. This shows all the funds that the district maintains from the beginning fund balance, plus revenues, plus any transfers in, less any transfers out, less any expenditures to get to an ending fund balance, and shows the net change in each one of the funds the district maintains. So on the row 1, you can see in the far right column that $2,990,794 use of reserves. That's the same thing we saw in the summary document for the JAL Fund 54. All of those columns, that column for all of the other funds is what you'll see on the coming slides for all of the other funds as well. One item that I will point out here is there's a question from time to time, an important question of what is the district's reserve balance? How adequate is the district's reserve balance? And there's a couple components that we have to have in reserve balance, the general fund, and that is the Tabor reserve. Actually, all the funds require a Tabor reserve, but the general fund Tabor reserve is about $6.5 million. That's 3% of the planned expenditures for the current year. So when we look at that, planned expenditures for the general fund would be the $1,973,000 of transfers out. And you can see in the column right before that where those dollars are going, and the expenditures of $214.9 million. So adding those two numbers together, multiplying by 3% is the required Tabor reserve. And each of the funds have a similar reserve. Also in the general fund, the board policy is to have 3 to 5% board reserve. So that would be another $6.5 to $8.5 million for board reserve. And the remaining amount of that $31,790,000 is some of that is restricted reserves, meaning if there's carryover dollars that were budgeted one year and carried over to the next, that happens in fairly rare circumstances. Typically, it's for capital projects that have been budgeted in the prior year, 23, 24, but have not been completed by June 30th because they're summer projects, so they're taking place in June, July, August, which go into the next year. We carry over that budget into the next year and pay that out of reserves essentially. But there's restricted reserves, that's what that would be referred to, and then unrestricted reserves in the district as well. So the $31.8 million that you see in the general fund is about 14.7% of the total expenditures. Statute says a district or an entity should not have more than 15% in their reserves. That's not a hard and fast number that's enforced, but it's a solid number from a reserve standpoint. So even with the approximate $3 billion use of reserves in the general fund, if everything worked perfectly according to the budget, the district would still be at that 15% reserve threshold, which is inclusive of the table reserve, the board reserve, restricted reserves, and unrestricted reserves, which in my opinion is a healthy number.
Sure.
I did say page 24 was an important document.
Yes, you did.
Okay. So then, I'll explain the template here. You'll see it's what we've done in the past, where you can see the 23-24 budget or prior year. I mean the 24-25 budget for each of the other funds that are listed on page 24. So, and then you'll see a level of detail on the revenues and expenditures, and then again broken down on the right-hand side by the object codes that CDE requires us to have. So again, all of these fund balances, all of the revenue, expenditures, ending fund balance should tie back to page 24 in the document. But you'll see nutrition services on page 25, federal grants on page 22 gives you an idea of the federal programs that the district participates in, federal grants in those 2 through 17. So pages 26 and 27, and 28, and 29, all are federal grants. Page 30 is the Athletics and Activities Fund, 33, that's 30 and 31. 32 is the PILO, or Land Reserve Fund. Payment in lieu of is the acronym for PILO. Those are dollars that are there. I will point out that when you look at the ending fund balance on page 32 of $250,000 versus a starting fund balance, a beginning fund balance of $2.2 million anticipated, we appropriate or plan on, we allow the expenditures of that amount, leaving a $250,000 reserve balance, but we don't have definite plans for buying. Typically water shares and land acquisitions are what those expenditures would be for. We just allocate those dollars or budget those dollars in case they are necessary. If they're not spent, they will make it in the reserve balance. And any expenditure out of this would come to the board for approval as well. Page 33, 34, 35 is our state and local grants. And again, on rows 2 through 17 on page 33, you can get an idea of what some of those larger state and local grants that the district participates in are. Page 36 is our fee supported. And again, you can see what those items are. So the First Steps program, which is tuition for the infant care. Summer school, we have no revenue from that. Facility rental fees, renting out of our pools, class fees that we have that you see on row 5, Always those types of items. Bond redemption on page 37 is how the district services our bonded debt, principal and interest associated with the two outstanding bond issuances that we have, the 2012 and refunding and the 2019 general obligation bonds. Page 38 is the building fund. This is a fund that has changed significantly over the last 5 years because the proceeds that we got from selling the bonds, plus the premium, plus the interest that we've earned, has gone into Fund 41. But just as taxpayers instructed us to do, as the board has instructed staff to do, we have completed and spent down the dollars on many of those bond-related projects. The anticipation is that the 25-26 year will fully extinguish the funds that were in that. I very likely could sit here next year and tell you there's a little bit of a balance in there just for some last-minute contingency type projects that could be remaining, but that has come down significantly from $176 million 5 years ago to an expected fund balance at the end of 24-25 of zero. In perfect world. Page 39 is the capital projects fund. This is where that transfer from the general fund comes from a revenue standpoint, and then it is identified by capital projects across a variety of programs. And lastly, page 40 is a memorial trust. This was an anonymous donation that has been in place for quite some time. To benefit graduating seniors at Logan High School. The beneficiaries wanted to remain completely anonymous. The family that provided this, both husband and wife are deceased, and they're ending this program. So there's about a $30,000 balance that is remaining in here that will likely be spent down, if not in 24-25, then in 25-26. That this fund will then be discontinued. And with that, I have lost my estimate of being under 15 minutes, but hopefully that provided a very rapid fire update on the proposed budget for Thompson School District for the fiscal year of 2024 in
26 minutes.
Not even close.
But it was ready.
Always leave them wanting.
Yeah.
Questions I may address for
All right, I have no idea where we left off, so let's just start over again. Amy, any questions in particular that jumped out?
You're okay, no. Hey, thanks, Fonzie.
Keep going. Stu?
I'm looking for something to come back to.
Okay, come back to you, okay?
If I may ask or add one additional comment, sorry, on the, so as I mentioned, there's been presentations to the board along the way as we've gone to scaffold this approach. This is the first full document for the board's edification. Monday night, scheduled in this very room, will be a community budget forum for anybody that should choose to attend or want to attend. This is the same document that I was planning on presenting on there, but it allows a more intimate setting. If somebody has questions, the community members have any questions on finance, revenue, expenditures, funding.
It's violent.
That's where I have an intimate discussion about budget.
Intimate setting.
For budget.
Mood lighting will be provided.
Background music, right?
Background, depending on the tone and tenor, there is an over/under on that attendance as well, but I'm not sure.
Well, you just sold it, so who knows what's gonna happen? I mean, really, you
All right.
just really increased.
All
Stu,
right,
did you
I
find your
found what I was
question?
looking for.
Okay.
So Gordon, the very last page
Thank you.
is the same as page 24, is that correct?
It is. That is correct. So thank you for that reminder. The three other documents that you have at the end are the resolutions that we ask the board to adopt at the next business meeting. The first is the resolution of budget adoption, just that, accepting the budget. The second is resolution of use of beginning fund balances, so you can see 5 or 6 funds there that have an anticipated use of reserve balance. That's not uncommon for funds for a variety of reasons, and there's some descriptions or explanation on what results in that or how that results. And then the third document is the resolution of appropriation, which is the district is not allowed to spend any dollars in the budget unless they are duly appropriated by the Department of Education. And that's what that resolution does.
All right, Don. Nancy.
You wouldn't believe me if I said no.
Probably not. Try me.
Just like, please, Nancy.
Nancy, we all believe in you. Moving on to Alexandra.
I have, but I'm only going to ask a few of the questions that I have, just because I think they might be. So on the page 18 in the non-FTE, the instructional supplies school sites. So in my RFI, one of the things I had asked was like, by school, you know, how are these things distributed? When I looked at the non-FTE, it doesn't add up to the 1.135 million. So I'm wondering what comprises this school's instructional supplies, and how is it distributed to the different schools? And given that this is a category I've talked about before, why did it decrease this year when I've talked about maybe it should increase so teachers don't have to keep using their money?
Sure. What page are we on?
18.
18, line 1. Thank you. So it's a $1,136,000 item. There's also another line item, if I could lay my eyes on it, that's called the non-instructional supplies. The answer to your question is the calculations for that is based on student count. So that's why the number is down. So we have a set dollar amount for an elementary school is at one rate, middle schools are at a different rate, and high schools are at a third rate. Based on historical spends, needs that are out there, and there's always more needs than dollars available. But it's a dollar amount on the RFI document that was provided. That is one of the pages that's there. This shows the breakdown by school for instructional and non-instructional, so you can see exactly what the dollar amount allocation on a per student, and that is a per head count student, not a per funded pupil count, but a per head count. How that is calculated for each individual school.
And is that the $85?
Yeah.
And the other one's 12.
Right, there are different rates for each level. So elementary has a level, they have fewer students than a high school, obviously. So there's less funding that would go to them, but it's based on a per pupil ratio or per pupil amount for each one of the schools. So again, one of the documents in the RFI response shows each school for instructional and non-instructional and what their dollar allocation is.
And why did the funding for summer school go down? 200,000. It's going from 300 to 100.
That is one of those items that caught my attention as well. We've used we had budgeted in 23-24 that program from ESSER dollars. So there's some questions of ESSER dollars going away, which in theory would make that number go up, rather than down, so from 300 to 100. I have not had a chance to circle back with Dr. Schneider and her team, though I did consult the template that came from the department, and it was 100,000. And not to put Melissa on the spot, but
Sure. We were able to save some money by curating some of our own materials and using some of what we had in our curriculum materials instead of purchasing additional kits like we had done in the past with our ISA funds, because we wanted to make the summer school a little bit more academic. It's like first things that we did. We had so much, and we had so much left over, we were able to reuse some of the things we had.
And we were able to expand it, this year, aren't we? As far as like the number of seats, spots open?
We have just shy of 1,000 kids that are gonna be starting on Monday.
Yeah, and that's an,
And that's an increase from last year.
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so I guess, yay, Melissa saved money. I don't know, Barb, I don't know what, how you wanna, cause I'm probably the only goofball that has, questions. The only other big thing I noticed that jumped out right away was on the SRO on page 21.
What line is it?
It's, line
212
12 and
and
213. So it's like, one's going up, one's
Yeah.
going down, but the net doesn't seem to add up to, I don't think is it the same amount of the number increases that were shown up that earlier in the
It is not the same as the numbers that you saw in the earlier presentation. It is off by $5,253.
You are my kind of guy.
Why is that?
A budget bust. On a $1.4 million line item, I will accept a $5,000 variance. Within that level of tolerance.
But what's the level of tolerance? Just as that, right? Double check it.
There's documentation of how that number was arrived at, yes.
And last one, and then I'll.
Okay.
On like web support, the CCR department advertising,
We still on the same page?
it's on page 22, starting on line 272. It seems like there's a lot of decreases. There's one increase, but it just seems counter to our priority of wanting to reach out to the community and communicate that we're decreasing these lines.
Well, we had,
Right.
I believe that is the line item that was, the name of the product.
Thought exchange.
Thought
Right,
exchange.
right, that's the big one, but.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's where you see the delta. We eliminated that.
And so then it's kind of offset where we decrease the department budget for CCR and the advertising.
I think postage went up, and then there were some other things that we added within the budget. The Thought Exchange, and I may be off by a little bit, I think it was a $50,000 expense. And by eliminating that, we were able to build in efficiencies to fund
Oh.
other things.
Okay.
So after I will add, after the initial round of the budget templates being accumulated from the departments, from all the departments and gathering input from all them, there was a request to knowing that the district was likely to be in a use of reserves, to please go back and review their budgets one more time to make sure that there were areas or wherever there could be potential areas of savings. That was one of the particular items. So credit to my cabinet colleagues for going back there, and that was a very worthwhile exercise because there were a couple areas that we found where there were fairly substantial dollars, like $150,000 in one category that was double budgeted. It was on 2 templates. So we said, great, we can do it off of one. So that second round of review by my cabinet colleagues and their teams was really beneficial in helping us get that use of reserves number to what I feel is a reasonable number.
Okay. I have some other questions on like some of the FTE changes, but I'll just put it in an email. I know you will all be like waiting with bated breath to read my RFI, so.
Pretty sure.
So I have a question on page 25, the nutrition services, that it strikes me that the changes here are fairly dramatic, such as a 2,515% increase in the funding from the state. And I know a lot of this has to do with the Healthy Schools for All program, but then there's other things like lunch sales and a la carte sales like went down a lot summer. Like there's just like huge changes all over the place. And so I'd like you to speak a little bit about that.
I appreciate the question. You're all becoming very good budget reviewers because that is absolutely something that caught my attention to. My response to that would be exactly what you said. Healthy School Meals for All was implemented in 23-24. And it was a shot in the dark from a budgeting standpoint of what that was going to mean. So when you compare budget last year to budget this year, budget last year we went to the extreme of it's going to be, we don't know for sure, but let's budget conservatively on the high side, which we did. This year we have, I just actually earlier in the meeting was looking at an update from Nutrition Services. In the past, when we got to 1 million meals in a year, it was a significant milestone. So with lower enrollment this year, we have finished the year at just short of 2 million meals, 1.9 million meals served. So trying to figure out a budget for an unknown, brand new program had some tolerance errors or issues, I would say, in 23, 24. We have a better feel for that in 24, 25, but there are still some challenges, much like with universal preschool. With both of those were significant changes in the budget last year, new programs that we hadn't seen before. And while we're heading into year 2 with more information, we still don't have likely a complete picture. But rest assured that the numbers that are budgeted here are reflective of the number of meals that we've seen served this year, not just from a commodity standpoint for the products themselves, but the serving trays that we use, the staff that's necessary, and that's a staffing challenge, much like custodial, much like bus drivers, is staffing for nutrition services workers. But I have a level of confidence with this budget that it is realistic, but your question is warranted with the dramatic swings that have taken place in the budget year. I would expect next year's to hopefully start lessening that level of tolerance or that swing that we're missing.
Okay, so is the USDA reimbursement going down $5.6 million? Is that because of getting more from this state
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. To participate in the Healthy School Meals for All, we have to maximize enrollment and participation in any federal program that's available. And once we do that, then there's a higher contribution from the state. And that's why you see that go up so much. $170,000 last year was not an accurate number to put in there, because we had a sizable amount of reimbursement from the state. So the $170,000, if I had to pick out one number, it's on line 6 of page 25, state categorical funding of $170,000 for 23-24 should have been much more reflective, like $4 million.
And then my final question related to that is that the kitchen staff salaries and benefits is going down like $1.3 million?
Some of that is related to unfilled positions. So we try not to budget for unfilled positions. We want to say that we are going to be fully staffed. But some of that is just not understanding what the staffing in the kitchens might look like, and the $3.9 or $4 million that you see budgeted for 23-24 was obviously overstated.
Okay, thank you.
All my questions were asked. I was curious about the nutrition program as well. Anybody else have anything more other than Nancy? I mean, you're gonna put yours in as an RFI? Okay, thank you. All right. Nicely done.
Less than an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, thank you, Gordon. We will see this 10. Oh, FYI, at our next meeting, when we have these pages, the resolution of budget adoption and resolution of use of beginning fund balances, we have to read those aloud, correct? Okay? So I might call on some
Put an extra 20 minutes.
Right, just so you're aware, we will be practicing our reading skills.
Right.
Okay.
Barb, actually, I do have a question. Will we hear the entire budget presentation again?
I don't know if that would be a
Next
Gordon
meeting?
question, I don't think so.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
No, they will all be done, not as action consent, but discussion action. So we'll
Okay.
take up each, we'll do the regular public comment followed by all of our action consent. Then we will have a unique public comment for people to be able to comment on budget items only, followed by discussion action. We'll take each item separately. Gordon will briefly tee them up, and then if there's any questions or follow-up, and then we will vote, and then he'll briefly bring up the next one, and then we will say.
But it won't be the whole presentation.
It will, hopefully not.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Gordon.
Monday night, same
Yeah,
place,
okay.
same time, same place.
With a little bit more intimate situation.
Candles, we, right.
No wine, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay.
Well, she just went.
So,
Okay, we are moving on to, hold on, I lost all my stuff. 5.2 is equity update, right?
6.2.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my numbers are way off again. Where did I miss? Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, it is 6.2. I can go back. I think I fixed it and everything. There's 2 little errors. Okay.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Schaefer again tonight. We have for you an equity update, which is a 2-part presentation. So this first part of the presentation, I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Maria Gabriel. She is here as our lead diversity and inclusion director to give you an update on the work that she has been doing in her department, and then transition that work over to the cabinet level, and you will hear an update from the cabinet level from our 2 cabinet members here. So we'll go right over back to Dr. Gabriel and have her start us off.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Schaefer. I'm happy to be here with you this evening to share an update on the work at the Department of Language, Culture, and Equity, which is now the Department of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. The presentation will be followed by the superintendent's cabinet members, as you just heard, and the EDI department has included student voices, community, and staff input, and building and district leadership, including many of you, our board members. Since 2019, and our process is to do a number of things. First, define equity within the Educational Equity Policy, ADB. 2, to create an educational equity framework and garner input on potential strategies and actions to move our system toward equitable outcomes across all divisions of the district. We're still on the first slide, sorry.
Still on what?
Still on the first slide.
Can you just get the, you just give her the advance here?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
That way
Thank
it's
you.
easier.
That would be nice.
Well, thank you. I'm going to start a little bit back because first, define equity within the Educational Equity Policy, ADB. 2, to create an educational equity framework and garner input on potential strategies and actions to move our system toward equitable outcomes across all divisions of the district. 3, to begin to provide professional development on EDI topics. And 4, to offer important language to TSD Strategic Plan 2025 language in its 2021 revision.
See, your big buttons. Make a favor.
Okay. The EDI department has multiple connections to Strive 2025. The first version of Strive 2025 did not have all of these direct connections to our equity-focused work, and were added after the equity policy, framework, and community input were gathered. This has allowed us to not just write and pass a policy, but to do what the board at that time requested, ensure that we implement it. I'll go through these desired outcomes quickly to highlight the connections to our presentation with Strive 2045. First, under student achievement, our system is committed to eliminating disparities in student outcomes, as you see here, 1.1. Academic achievement, growth, graduation, behavioral outcomes, and educational opportunities. Being located in the Learning Services Division has given me the opportunity to consult with Learning Services directors regarding these areas of focus. My EDI team has focused on increasing access to educational opportunities for diverse student groups. Under Inclusive and Supportive Culture, I continue to offer EDI training, partner with families and community, support building leaders with staff training related to welcoming, safe, and inclusive facilities, and to encourage all employees in the system to enact the educational equity policy from their board. I'm proud to have provided training to LS Learning Services directors about ways to utilize culturally responsive recruitment, hiring, and retention practices, as well as to model the use of the strategies. While we often think we don't have highly qualified, diverse, and culturally competent candidates, I'm happy to share that using the strategies shared with my director team and colleagues, I recruited and hired a bilingual and bicultural candidate for our EDI technician. Diversity and excellence are found in this individual as she received the top of the Thompson Award this fall. In the EDI department, this one is focus area 4, as you can see here. I just want to note that in the EDI department, we spent 60% of our budget this year on increasing students' access to educational opportunities in alignment with desired outcome 1.1. In case some of you are wondering, the other 40% goes towards staff development and needs of the department. Next, I want to just make some connections to Thompson School District's mission and vision. Oh, so complicated. Okay. Dr. Schaefer has led our district with an equity-centered approach, inviting us to shift from thinking about all students to each student to ensure equitable access, opportunity, and outcomes. And you can just kind of see the way I've kind of laid that out in the slide. Next, I wanted to share the visual part of the opportunity to learn. I think is super powerful, something that I really love. I think pictures speak 1,000 words, as people say, and our department is so happy to share the many ways we've engaged students in community cultural activities in partnership with local Heart and Soul and other community partners. Honoring TST graduates who are part of the Cumbres program at UNC to become teachers, surveying families, attending to unique cultural experiences of our newcomer and migrant students, hosting the Loveland Martin Luther King Youth Art and Writing Contest, and celebrating their success with our larger community, getting students onto college campuses, and this year partnered with Loveland Loves to Read and brought their selected author, Luis Borea, to host a writing workshop at Thompson Valley High School. That's the bottom left picture. That was We are also proud to be able to offer 20 community service hours for high school students to assist them in meeting their graduation requirement. We had a couple call us, past the deadline and swooped them in and got them connected because we don't want that to be a barrier to students' graduation. Next, I wanted to share a couple of the celebrations from this year. The pictures have highlighted some of that work. And this list adds additional information and metrics related to staff training, to new partnerships, budget expenditures focused on diverse youth, listening sessions, family engagement, student field trips, our capacity at being a conduit to relationships and resource allocation for students. The last bullet highlights this year's work with Matt Field of the Communications Department to create a two-year dashboard that demonstrates the progress of the superintendent's cabinet and the work that they have undertaken to implement equity across all divisions. They will share that with you this evening. Next, I'd like to share with you the 5 equity moves we're taking across the district's divisions to move our system toward equitable outcomes. For those of you who've been on the board are familiar with this, and those that are a little bit newer have been for a couple of years, so wanted to make sure that I could bring you along. They include equitable resource allocation, inclusive family, guardian, and community input, culturally competent and diverse staff, professional learning for equity, and multilingual communication. As the EDI department moves to the Student Support Services Department in July, we will be collaborating with that team to provide professional learning for equity through our district strategic plan focus area of inclusive and supportive culture, with a continued focus on inclusive family, guardian, and community input. We will start by using the data findings from Hanover Research's study of the 21 student listening sessions that the EDI department held at all middle and high schools between October and December this past fall in 2023. One of the foci of the Learning Services Division in TSD will be to ensure that each student in TSD has access to culturally responsive instructional practices in their academic and affective learning as connected to the Colorado Department of Education's Educator Effectiveness Evaluation rubric. That will be described in a future slide. I want to just give you a sense of where we have been providing some professional development. This triangle really is demonstrating the different steps that I believe it takes when you're training folks really to then get to the point of changing student outcomes. So I believe that we're at the top of this training triangle. 2 years ago, the EDI director and other learning services staff began teaching principals about the state's evaluation rubric, Quality Standard 2, which states, teachers establish a safe, inclusive, and respectful learning environment for a diverse population of students. Principals have had approximately 7 hours of training each school year, first in Quality Standard 2, and then this year in additional quality standards and providing feedback. So you can see really it's like number 1 and number 4 is where we have started. So this school year, learning services leaders partnered with principals and began in the 4th area of the triangle here, monitoring and providing feedback. We're going to continue to build our capacity to meet the needs of each of our students by increasing teacher training, which is number 2, and support for teachers to implement the standards, which is number 3. With all of these professional development components in place, we will begin to see changes in student outcomes. This year, we will begin to look at bright spots and to share those out with our staff. I want to give you a little more information about what I've been referring to in the Colorado Department of Educator Effectiveness Quality Standards. This is a picture of Quality Standard 2B. You can see in the light blue stripe there that it states that teachers demonstrate an awareness of, a commitment to, and a respect for multiple aspects of diversity while working towards common goals of community learners. The roadmap lines at the bottom of the slide demonstrate where we have started with training principles about first. On the left bottom there, you can see, on the left, things. Shut up. Okay, so there on the left, when a teacher demonstrates that they acknowledge the influence of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, socioeconomics, disabilities, home language, gifted and talented identification, and other aspects of culture on student perspectives, they are demonstrating level 1 practices for this standard and element. Level 1 through practices on the left, you can see, are dependent on the teacher's observable practice, moving from acknowledging aspects of diversity and culture to creating a classroom environment and instruction with materials and lessons that counteract stereotypes in level 3. Levels 4 and 5 are dependent on the students' observable practices, with level 5 including students advocating for multiple aspects of diversity, equity, and social awareness in the classroom setting. This is where we have started our professional learning for equity that you saw in the equity framework slide. The last 2 slides I'm excited to share with you this evening include the district's educational equity web pages. When you navigate to the About page from the main TSD website, you can find the link easily. And thank you, a special thanks to Matt Beal for helping with this. And I knew I didn't want to try to toggle in front of you to get there, so this is just a screenshot of what you would get to when you open that link. You can now see a brief overview of the work that the EDI department has done to build the systems infrastructure to support this system-wide approach to implementing TSD's equity policy. The equity implementation at TSD has been taking place since February 2019. And the timeline on the right side of the page that you can see on the slide has many important artifacts that demonstrate the work of your Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, our team, and the involvement of hundreds and hundreds of community stakeholders throughout this time. This timeline highlights the successes that TSD has had in engaging the broad community in our activity work. The map pin at the bottom of the page shows where we are now. The superintendent's cabinet is ready to continue to implement their chosen strategies and action steps each year to move the system forward towards its goals. They will now share this school year's successful equity implementation strategies and actions taken. Thank you.
So, as you can see with all of us right here, we really do believe in a team approach. This is not one department, one division, it's all of us. We all have and our implementation. So that is a link that goes to our website. I won't go to that particular piece, but we have created that progress monitoring. We have showed the connections and the transitions and all the next steps. And so you can see that with that implementation work. So when we look at the focus area of inclusive family and guardian and community input, so our strategy is to make sure that we provide forums, including childcare and interpretation services, to diverse communities to allow staff and students and families and educators and leaders to participate in special cultural topics and experiences. So examples of these have been, we have hosted listening sessions for students and families. We have engaged in the community naming of our youth shelter called The Landing. And of course, you all are part of the many Board of Education community forums that we use to bring people together. We also have Focus Area 2, which is on multilingual communications. So our strategy is to provide all district and school-wide communications for families in Spanish and English via written translations and or oral interpretation. The progress monitoring towards this is we have created consistent signage for entry to district and school sites in English and Spanish, and we are exploring a digital multimedia tool for translation and accessibility for all schools. Currently, we're in Title I schools. We are using something called an ILA device, and we're going to pilot that next year at all of our Title I schools. And then we're also looking at Pocket Talk, and we're going to pilot that with our schools to provide on-site translation services. Both of them work in multiple languages, as well as provide even an opportunity for sign language. In strategy number 2, we will increase access to bilingual staff to support communication needs across the district. And so we have increased our staff in interpretation and translation services, and we continue to communicate with our district and school staff about translation options, and including adding potentially this multilingual tool will increase that capacity.
So focus area 3, so the first strategy is increase the diversity of highly qualified staff and recruitment, hiring and retention process. So an example, our strategy with that is build partnerships and attend Koalas job fairs, focus on high quality hires. And what that means is we recruit teachers and administrators of color when we go to a specific job fair, the Koalas job fair. Strategy 2 is to offer cultural competence training to all staff to meet the needs of diverse learners, colleagues, families, and communities we serve. An example, explore culturally competency training modules created by Public School Works for all employee groups. So the word in there is explore. So we look at different opportunities, and currently we use Public School Works as a training module, which is a condition of employment. We have like child abuse that goes out to staff. We have sexual harassment going out to staff. And what we explored was there's a discrimination-free workplace that all employees will go through next year. That would be a condition of employment and be sent out. And the other one that we're looking at right now to see if we move that forward is diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI for educators. So that's another module that we're looking at to implement. And the third strategy is continue affinity groups for employees. Focus area 4, strategy 1.
Sorry.
Okay. I'll say that really fast. Okay, focus area 5.
Sorry.
So 4 is explore training and restorative practices to all staff who have student contact. Develop a multi-year plan for restoration practices training to being in 24-25. And the team is pretty proud of that through the implementation team, student success teams, which Next year, it's gonna be called continuous improvement teams next year. At one time, we had one person in charge of restorative practices, Cheryl O'Shell, if that name rings a bell, and completely overburdened for the amount of support that was needed, because we really had one person. And at the time being in the building, like calling around to help support students, that was just one person. So what's taking place right now is training of key leadership teams for staff. So basically, it's a trainer model. So right now we have 15 people trained in that. So that's pretty exciting. Within a semester, getting 15 people trained that are in key buildings right now. And then the plan is basically saying, okay, what other schools need the training as well? So that's how they have the multi-year plan for that. And then explore differentiated DEI training modules approved by Public School Works. So that's another example that I talked about previously. It gets into the 2 modules. Like there's a third module that's about 10 minutes, but we're not moving that one forward. But there are 2 modules that we're having discussion moving forward. And then number 5 is focus area 5. Strategy 1 continues to conduct a funding allocation review to better meet the needs of students participating in an annual budget review process. So we work with the association through negotiations to see what the future can look like, and there's a budget study team as well, just continuing looking at how we fund schools, and then to see if there's any different allocations that we can meet the needs, because every year there's different needs in each building. And then strategy 2, explore incentives for staff working in schools with performance concerns, turnaround, no growth, or low growth over a 3-year period. Reported highly qualified staff status in schools and turnaround, no growth, and low growth schools. So what this strategy is, we looked at different research across the nation to see what's working out there, over the last 10 years. And what we did was we took some of the research and said, this would be a great idea for us to move forward. And a lot of research is saying, like, if you want to see growth, you really need to focus on professional development. So with that in mind, like, we have a middle school right now that has high needs, and we had decided to move 5 PD days for that school for licensed staff to bring in professional development and make sure everybody's moving the right track and just taking that extra time. So the staff was on board with that, and that is what's working this summer.
So, as we explained, these are all the different pieces that we've been talking about. So the district-wide professional learning, the public school works modules that we've talked about, the continual professional development at lots of different levels. We are going to implement multilingual interpretation and translation options through individuals and through devices. We also have an accessibility law, compliance and training. That is an entire team that's been working for a year on the new accessibility law that we have in Colorado. And that team has been working on what the professional learning would look like, as well as compliance to make sure that we are in compliance for accessibility. And of course, we will provide a future update in 24-25. Any questions?
That's a lot of information. Yeah, there were thoughts, and I'm just gonna go first since I haven't done that tonight. Just thoughts as you were all sharing and realizing that, yeah, we want this to be implemented, not just talked about, and that's where we, here I'm listening to what Maria said, it's so important. And I also understand that working with the administrators, but also knowing that a lot of the comments that we've received this year through emails or concerns from parents were directed at certain administrators as well, principals of schools. So I guess what I want us to be sure is that we follow up and follow through and bring forward a level of accountability to them, as well as to what we work with the teachers on. I don't want to use the word coach, but it feels like that's what it has to be. It feels like there has to be somebody who does some modeling for them. Okay, I saw what happened in this situation. How could you have done it better? What would be a better way to approach that child? That kind of thing. as well as for teachers, asking them, we all saw that escalate, but how could you have worked through it in a different way? I'm going to refer to a book that I talked with Dr. Schaefer about. It's the one that it's called Accountable, and it dealt with an issue in a school where there was a lot of racial bias that occurred, but it was strictly done through email. And it was, of course, middle school boys. And middle school boys are notorious for not thinking about what they put on the internet. They just do it. And they have this really warped sense of humor on how they approach it. But the response of the adults to those kids ended up a whole world of hurt for that whole school and thus the district. So I think it's really critical for us to, that book just brought it forward to me. And if you have any time over the summer to read that book, it's shockingly relatable to us here, because from one of the emails that we received from a parent about racial profiling that was coming on the bus, it's an indication of what this was all about. And so it's not just some California school, it's a situation that's so we just need to, here we are, we think we had this all in place, and then we had this situation that we think, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's occurring. So just I don't like the word of coaching, but there's got to be a level of accountability to everybody, from the administrator all the way down to the teachers and the other kids in the class. And that's all I'll say, because that was a lot. I'm sorry.
That was amazing. I mean, I just, I like how it's so, it touches every department, and it's not just, just bringing it with everybody, the team, is what you said. Maria, you said that your budget was 60%, only 40% was on administrative hourly stuff, but that's pretty phenomenal, I think. So thank you for that. I am interested in learning more about the translation devices that you talked about. Being in healthcare, we have our computer that we wheel in, and we just dial up in any language. So I'm really interested to learn more about that and see the results of that. I think that could be pretty powerful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Dr. Schaefer, first of all, thank you for responding to my comment. I'll just share with my colleagues, as I went through the slides, which were different than the slides we saw tonight, I saw the word explore, explored, and so I asked him when the presentation was actually made if some elaboration could take place or some definition. I saw that tonight, thank you, because explore is one of those words that can mean a lot or it can mean nothing. And you gave us the opportunity tonight to find out what it actually means in regard to the program.
It was all really thoughtful.
Yes, definitely. So I have questions about 4 of the slides. Do you want me to do all 4 of them, or do you want me to do one and then go around?
Just go ahead.
What do you want to do?
You go ahead.
All right. Maria, the first one is for you. One of the slides talked about the district and community partnerships. I got the impression maybe some of these are new. And so I'm curious to know, with whom are we partnering in the community to expand the work of DEI or expand the concept or whatever?
Well, one of the partnerships that we have really tried to extend and support more year-round has been Love with Heart and Soul. For example, really partnering with them along with folks from the previous Martin Luther King Loveland committee, events committee, and saying who should kind of take on this leadership and how do we do that. So we facilitated that conversation here actually and brought folks in together, because just those connections and relationships and maintaining trust, even though we knew there had to be a change take place, was part of that. And so Hartsville took over that event, but we partnered with them in terms of making sure that our students were going to be able to be recognized. That's an example, a specific example. Yeah.
Just an editorial comment, I think the community partnerships are so important to advance this. The next one, could you bring up slide 12? And while she's doing that, my question regarding slide 12 is, where are we in regard to the 5 different aspects of that pyramid, and is there a timeline?
We're really, as I mentioned, kind of at the top there in terms of the principal training that we're giving.
Yeah.
And then we've started a bit on that level 4 around this year, spending time with principals around monitoring and doing some specific and explicit training around principals providing feedback, just-in-time feedback, as well as sending learning services directors out to partner with principals and providing feedback. And so I really have put it in that context of like, we're kind of at 1 and 4. And so now we're really starting to look at, okay, how do we start determining, like colleagues mentioned, like determining what's the right professional development and how are we going to get that in front of all of our educators? What will that look like this year for teacher training? As Dr. Sievers mentioned, the teams that are now going to be called continuous improvement. And so restorative practices was one of those examples that we're going to really start putting out in front of teachers to ensure that they are implementing that. So it goes from 1 to 2, or 2 to 3. We want to provide the training, but then we also need to create space for our teachers to start implementing. And so I think that is not a fast process. When you think about the number of teachers we have across the system, we're going to start building that capacity. And somebody else might want to speak to kind of timelines. I can't that as well.
They're not all on the same page either.
Not even at all.
You know, that's the thing too, is it's very, very different. It's each teacher, not teachers. It's each teacher has to have that same little support.
So you feel good right now with where we are in regard to item number 1, in regard to the principal training? Is that right? We're moving now to teacher training? Am I misunderstanding what you're saying?
And we are feel good about that.
What's that?
Please tell me we all feel good about that.
This is really meant to be a demonstration of where we've spent the last 2 years in regard to professional development for Quality Standard 2. So I'm not making a judgment, good or bad, or I'm just wanting to present in terms of here's where
that's where the time has been spent.
That's where the time has been spent.
That's
really
more
trying to build
more
the understanding of educator effectiveness, Quality Standard 2 that I shared with you, what that looks like 5 levels for teachers. So
okay.
And I'll add to the professional development offerings that have happened in the last 5 years. We have what we call the ELP pathway. That is something like the state is asking of teachers to be able to get 45 hours of equity themed training to be able to renew their license.
Right.
And so Maria and I had worked together even 5 years ago on the ELPD pathway, and she is now teaching one, maybe not more, but she just taught one yesterday. But it's a free way for us to we offer these classes according to the standards that CDE puts out that we need to cover. They're very much in alignment with our equity policy, so it's great. We've had a couple hundred teachers go through that voluntarily in the last 5 years to renew their licenses, and we offer it to them for free. So, but the majority of the on-clock time in learning services, in terms of our time with administrators at principal meetings, we have hit Quality Standard pretty hard in the last couple years.
Thank you. That answers the
Principals
question.
can provide one-on-one feedback to their staff and grow them in that way too.
So we've instructed, provided development opportunities for the principals, and now we're going to be asking them to provide that for their staff. Is that accurate?
And continuous improvement teams, yes.
Okay, thank you. Could you move to slide 18? And this question is for you, Kelly.
Can you inquire on which slide? Because I'm not.
They're not numbered.
It's 2. It's fun, yep.
Are we considering any other languages than Spanish in regard to providing translation, etc., for students who come to us from cultures or countries where the second language is not Spanish, but it might be something else. What are we doing there?
So the ILA devices that we are experimenting with at Title I schools and the Pocket Talk at least provide 87 to 125 different languages.
Okay. All right.
And what you can do with those devices is you could choose to speak or type, whichever one you want to be able to do. And then the other individual on the side that may need translation services is choosing the language that best fits them, and then so that creates more of a dialogue and a conversation.
Okay. Thank you. That provides a lot of opportunity. My last one is related to slide 21. This is for you, Bill.
Focus area 5.
Sure.
I'm wondering how this is necessarily related to DEI. Isn't this related to education of our students in general?
It is. It's the same thing like title schools. Looking at the population and comparing it to staff that are there. The other thing that we looked at is exploring incentives. There's a lot of research of having the most highly effective teachers in the buildings that are getting great results and moving them to low performing schools, right? So then you look at the demographics of low performing schools, and let's say it's highly Hispanic, like what type of teachers are teaching in the classroom, like what role models. So, there's a lot of different research that we looked at, but there's a tie into that.
So from the wording of strategy 2, would I infer that for the schools that are turnaround, no growth or low growth, that many of those are schools that have a high Hispanic population?
Not necessarily.
Just they do have poverty though,
Correct.
universally.
Correct.
And a lot of them are our most racially diverse, not only Hispanic,
Okay.
but that is absolutely true.
Okay. Thank you. This was very interesting. Thanks for answering.
Yes.
Don?
All right, so I have a lot, and I know we're in an interest of time, I don't want to do all of it, but I am very concerned that we're not doing enough with enough people in enough different places across roles and responsibilities, because ultimately our rubric doesn't do anything for a student who doesn't get to the classroom or can't hear what's being said in the classroom because we're not doing anything else, these other things right before they get there. And I think Barb, you brought up one example. Unfortunately, I have examples on a regular basis where we have people who just have no exposure to the challenges that students are dealing with, and the decisions that they are making that are really terrible, and what that means for a student who then can't access the learning because the one thing that was great for them is now not great, which was sports as an example, right? Our coaches are not teachers. And, it's just, I think about how long I've been part of these conversations, and the fact that what I'm hearing as the things that are happening still being the level where we're at really concerns me. I know it isn't this fast processed, but I do think that there needs to be a wider net as well as depth. And I'm worried that we're not doing either enough. I worry about that a lot with the experiences that our students are having that keep them from education. And I also wrote down, and I hate that I wrote this down, but something that was said while we were sitting here was talking about all the input that we had from the community and how we've prioritized the community input and student voice, and we are talking to students a ton. I want to talk to them even more. I've said that before and I mean it. But I'm concerned about the fact that anytime that you ask anybody for their input and then you don't take that under advisement and take action on it, it's worse than never asking at all, right? 15-year-olds kind of don't expect us adults to ask. But if you do ask, we've created a commitment to do something about it. And I have had a lot of those 15-year-olds come to me through my work. And let's be real, they don't come to me through my work with light shit. So when I hear from a kid about how we're failing, and it's through suicide prevention, it's not okay. It's not. I want to see us do more with restorative. I'm really glad we're taking that on, but there's just, there is a need for that to be something that has a lot of support. We know that it's got to be deep. I hate that I feel this strongly about where we've got these gaps. I really do, because I know we're working hard. It's not a reflection on how hard we're working. It's just really like making sure that we go upstream as much as possible, because we have kids who get to the classrooms, and we have kids who are in the classroom being completely disrespected because an adult doesn't know better still. Not because they're trying to be biased, but because they don't know better. And that breaks my heart to hear the ways that we're just missing the mark, because we don't have enough people who know how to do basic stuff that isn't what they've experienced themselves. You have a student population that is more diverse than the adults, so that's just true. And so we have to meet the needs of the students that exist. And if we are older than them and not experienced the world that they've been in, we have the potential to do very harmful things to them. And I worry a lot about how we've missed the mark because we need to do more. So I appreciate everything that is being done, and I just, I hope we could do a bit more charity feeding and intentionality. So, and moving EDI where it's being moved doesn't work for me at all. So, turn it over to you.
I'm trying to think. What do I say after that? I guess first thing would be, can you give me not everything, just a couple examples of what you've spent 60% of your budget on to increase the educational opportunities?
Yes, let's see.
I think it's great that you're spending 60% of your budget, but what does that look like?
So for example, on slide 8, which is the 23-24 celebrations, we've co-hosted multiple diverse community events, in which we have been surveying students and families, and then we've organized and hosted 5 middle school and high school college field trips for 240 students across the district. So the things are going to students to support them in having increased educational opportunities. So getting on a college campus, being able to participate in unified schools events and programs. Those are some examples.
Is the unified sports fall under the community events? Or?
No, unified sports falls under events for students, educational opportunities.
So what are the community events?
The community events, we had actually engaged families with surveying about some of the pieces of our strategic plan, inclusive like support cultural around belonging, safety, those kinds of things have been in the fall. We partnered with My Heart and Soul on their Hispanic Heritage Month event, and we had the opportunity to, I don't have the numbers here with me, but hear from a huge amount actually of students and families there. And then at the end of the year, we worked with them on their PETA event, so Asian Pacific Islander Pacific American Community Celebration. We were able to connect students and families there as well. Those are the two community events outside of Martin County.
Okay. And then I think to kind of follow up on Dawn's concerns and statements, as we're working on all of this equity and diversion and inclusion,
Diversity.
and diversity, how do we, because these are, these kids are being impacted, so as they're here and they're experiencing all these things, what are we, or what can we do to also make sure that we're drawing in the parents and working with them to make sure that they understand and can help their students, or whatever else that might look like, because I think it's important to always include the parents in all of this, because this is more than just learning how to read. These are other really big issues that I think as we're trying to figure out how to do all of these different things with, I'm sorry, my throat's bugging me, with the diversity, the equity, and inclusion. Sorry.
So if I can jump in just real quick, like the restorative practices piece, it involves parents. So depending on the situation, it's, you know, if the student's making a poor choice, restorative practice is about how did that choice impact others? How did that impact your family? How did that impact the class? How did that impact the teacher? How did that impact administration? How did that impact the community? So there's different lenses with that. So I think that's easily how parents are involved with situations that take place within the schools.
That's definitely one. Another to answer your question, Nancy, our federal state programs department, as well as many other departments in learning services, including EDI, work to incorporate parents. And you've heard from Head Start tonight, and Head Start is we have a huge parent outreach with that. In federal and state programs, we actually have parent liaisons. We're going to be at each of our Title I buildings. We take our outreach to families. We at bolstered our kidney vento and homeless liaison personnel. We have specific family outreach events at some of our schools, because so not only is it an event at times, but it is a regular practice of the family outreach piece, and that we're actually building.
Liaisons paid.
Yeah, they're part of our Title I.
That's part of your budget, right?
Yeah, it's part of our Title I.
It's part of
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Alexandra.
So a couple of things. I mean, I definitely share concerns that others have expressed. And just a couple of things that sort of stuck out to me in the presentation. Like, I think all of the things you're doing as far as the professional development and the building capacity of teachers and administrators and stuff like that is obviously hugely important. What struck me a little bit is that, like, students were sort of missing throughout the presentation, and I think that also it's important to be targeting students directly, sort of to Barb's point about middle school boys doing crazy things and not knowing why it's horrible, and working, you know, efforts to work with the students to help them better understand the impact of their actions, and not necessarily in like a restorative, like getting in trouble way, but just in a like, let's talk about this way. Let's talk about, you know, why posting something on Instagram that calls somebody else a name, even if you think it's hilarious, is not hilarious. And so that's something I think that definitely needs to be a focus. And then the other thing is, in light of, you know, these few emails we've received recently about, you know, bullying and bad behavior and things like that, a couple of them mentioned disabilities as a focus of discrimination and of bullying and targeting, and I don't think like in this presentation it doesn't mention that as, you know, as a I don't want to say as like a protected class, but you know what I mean, like as that, and I don't think anybody believes that people with disabilities should be targeted, but I think that also, though, that population needs to be as much included in this as, you know, our foreign language speakers and our people of color and our so on and so forth. So those are two areas I would encourage you to keep a focus on.
Thank you guys for taking time and for listening to our response to all of it. And good work is going on. It's just, we want it to go faster.
Yes.
I don't know how else to put it.
We want you to solve all the problems of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right.
Right, without interrupting the staff.
Yeah. Unless anybody has anything else, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting for us because it's after 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay? All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks.